A Wednesday edition of the Sports Bash starts now. It's 97.3 ESPN. I'm your host, Mike Gill. Josh Henning producing today's show. You out there, we've got a bunch of runs being scored by the Phillies last night. What got into their offense? We'll discuss that and more. Mick Abel pitching tonight for the Phils. We got a whole bunch of Phils stuff to dive into that really, you know, you add one bat to the lineup last night, right? You put one bat in that lineup. Bryce Harper pushes everybody back one, and all of a sudden everything feels kosher again, right? Or does it? We'll discuss that and more. Plus, Eagles OTAs. We'll continue to kind of look at everything that's going on up there. The Vic Fangio stuff we discussed a lot yesterday. NBA Finals tomorrow night. Keith Smith, SpotTrack.com, covers the NBA. Just going to have a nice little NBA discussion with him on the new NBA. Is it changing right before our very eyes? You know, we talked a little bit about Halliburton versus Maxey. I want to get his thoughts on that as well. And I want to get yours at 609-403-0973. That's the way you can text. Climb on in today. Feel like there's something else out there that was on my mind. Oh, you know, Stump the Sports Geek Wednesday today, and that means we got a new category for Josh. You're playing for Creed tickets today. That's your band, man.
Yeah, it's one of the bands when I was younger. That was definitely a hot and heavy one.
If I was to make the listeners guess of a band that Josh would be a fan of, would Creed not be at the top of the list?
I mean, I don't know if they're the number one necessarily.
No, I didn't say it's at the top of your list. I said if I would make people guess a band that you would like.
Would people go to Creed more often than others?
Right. Would they say, oh, Josh, he's a Creed fan?
Now, the thing with you is, like, for example, you are much more of like a 90s rock guy. So, like, people might associate you with, like, people, you know, like Stone Temple Pilots, bands like that.
Yeah. But, I mean, Creed's one of those bands that people either like them a lot like you or think that they really are not talented at all like me.
Now, that was funny.
Yes. I am not a Creed fan, but I know a lot of people like Creed.
Listen, when I went to the concert last September, I mean, that place was slammed
I know.
wall to wall.
Hey, listen, I'm not obtuse. I know that there are a lot of Creed fans. I am just not one of them.
I mean, people were singing What If in unison. Scott Stapp stopped singing the song altogether.
I totally acknowledge that they are very, very popular. It's just not my bag. But I know they're popular enough that we're going to give those away for today's Stump the Sports Geek. That is in the 3 o'clock hour. We'll talk to Keith Smith in the 3 o'clock hour as well. Mike McGarry this hour on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. Phillies tonight, it's Mick Abel and Jose Berrios is the starter for Toronto, so we'll certainly dive into that. But I want to look back to last night where you didn't have to watch much of that game. Alec Boehm. Yeah, baby. Alec Boehm had a big night last night with 4 hits. That got lost in the sauce.
It did.
On a night where, Turner and Harper go back-to-back, and you felt like right off the bat, hey, here comes the offense, and they didn't stop. They got 6 in the first with Stott leading off, Turner hitting a homer. Stott was back in the leadoff up, but Turner in the 2-hole, he hits a homer, then Harper hits a home run.
Stott had a really good at-bat. He got on base and set up for Turner and hit that blast.
Yeah, a lot of people have said, I was reading an article about how apparently Turner really likes Stott and the amount of pitches he sees in front of him. But he's been really happy with the amount of pitches and stuff that Stott is kind of watching. Turner last night, 3 for 5, had 2 homers in the game. Harper with the home run in his return. On a night where Schwarber goes 0 for 5, you score 8 runs in the game. Boehm had 4 hits in the game last night. And really, that first inning was the game. You get 6, then another in the second to make it 7-0. And then, you had Christopher Sanchez. Not, crazy game, 6 innings, 4 hits, 4 strikeouts. So anytime I tell you take the over on the Sanchez, you lost that bet last night. But that's something you got to take. He generally racks up a bunch of strikeouts. But Joe Ross comes in, gets the job done. Max Lazar, I said last week, I never need to see Max Lazar pitch another game at this level. And Hernandez, who was another guy I don't need to ever see pitch again at this level. But they come in, Sanchez goes 6, 7, 8, 9. You get Ross, Lazar, and Hernandez, which means you didn't have to go to any of your high leverage guys if you even have any of those. So it was just a kind of a coasting of a win last night, right? It's kind of a game where you just kind of coast it to the finish line. You got into their bullpen. I'll give the guy Lauer some credit. He came in and kind of, held the game a little bit because Francis was terrible in the game. I looked up, and honestly, it's already 2-0 before the game even kind of gets off the ground. Then the next thing you know, it's 6-0 at the end of one, and he couldn't get out of the second inning last night.
By the way, did you see the Blue Jay fans applauding Jason Romano last night?
I did not see the Blue Jay fans applauding Romano, but it makes sense. They don't have to watch him pitch.
That's true, but they apparently...
Well, how about this whole story about... So have you seen the story about Hoffman? He kind of told his side of the story last night about what happened.
Right.
What do you make of that? Because there was a lot of talk, as Dave Dombrowski said, they were aggressive in trying to sign him.
Right.
And that they thought they made a pretty good offer.
Right. Dombrowski said he basically signed for what we offered him in the first place.
Well, Hoffman disputes that.
Right. Hoffman saying that they weren't aggressive at all, basically. And that Hoffman basically painted like the Phillies didn't want him.
Yeah, Hoffman said, quote, he basically painted a completely different picture here. He said, we asked a couple different times, and it just wasn't something that they were willing to do in terms of signing an extension. He said talks never really got going. And Dombrowski said, we tried to sign Hoffman very aggressively. Hoffman and his side saying, we don't see it that way. Quote, it was a lot of negotiating and not negotiating in down periods and then getting back into it with different teams. Every step of the way, they were pretty light. It was pretty clear early on that they weren't going to be in the right type of competitive market that we were looking for. So essentially, Dombrowski's coming out and saying, hey, man, we really tried to get, and at that time when that report came out, or when Dombrowski came out and said that, we kind of gave Dombrowski the benefit of the doubt of like, okay, he tried to sign Hoffman and they just couldn't get the deal done. And it doesn't seem that that's the case if you're believing Hoffman here.
Now, of course, there's all the whole part of it, what did the agent tell Hoffman versus what was told to the agent by Dombrowski? There's that whole variable as well, when you have the third party, right?
Yeah, it's like whose side of the story are you believing here? Are you believing Hoffman who's saying, no, they didn't come after me? Or are you believing the Phillies who said we were very aggressive after him?
I would say there's probably truth is somewhere in the middle. I don't know if the Phillies were like overly aggressive. I don't think they were as disinterested as the way. I mean, Hoffman, the way he described it, he made it sound like they didn't even really care if he left or not.
So right now, I'm giving you the chance to pick one or the other. Who you taking? Romano or Hoffman? Which guy are you riding with? Now, let me give you the numbers.
Well, I was going to say, because I know that Hoffman had a hot start to the season but has cooled off, while Romano had a horrible start to the season and has gotten better.
Yeah, it's almost like they have flip-flopped.
Yeah.
Hoffman was great early. He's now stunk. Romano was awful early. He's been better. But overall, Romano this season, you're looking at a guy in 24 games, 7.36 ERA, 159 whip. Those numbers are horrendous, by the way. He's got 29 strikeouts in 22 innings, which is decent, not outstanding. On the other side, Hoffman, now that's Romano in 24 games. Now, Hoffman has pitched in 26 games, so you can look at their numbers and see the parallels. 5.81 ERA. His whip is 110, which is still pretty good. Very good, actually. He's got 38 strikeouts in 26 innings, 7 walks. Romano has 12 walks. That's been a problem for him. I mean, Romano's numbers are not better than Hoffman's numbers. But, as you said, Hoffman got off to a really good start, and he's really been struggling. And now, it's vice versa.
And then also the other thing is that, we've seen Hoffman here in Philadelphia, so maybe there might be a bit of a bias to be like, I've seen him, And he ain't the guy.
I do want to stress, too, because Hoffman was only here a couple of years, he was here for 2 years, you might think of like he's a younger guy. He is 32 years old.
He's older than Romano.
And Romano is 32 years old. They are both 32.
They're
Hoffman's a
both
little
32.
bit older.
Oh, okay. It's like a year older.
No, his birthday's in January, and Hoffman's is in April. But they're both 32.
Gotcha.
So, but I think people just assume that Hoffman's the younger guy because he was only here for 2 years.
Right.
And that's not the case. They're actually both the same age. But both of these guys have had their struggles, put it that way. I think Hoffman has been slightly better. The whip is way better than Romano's is. I don't know which one I would take. I guess, I don't know. Hoffman imploded in the playoffs last year.
Yeah.
Romano, have the Blue Jays made the playoffs?
I was going to say, has Romano even pitched in a playoff game?
Romano, see, there you go. He laughed at that. I didn't find that funny. That happened before. Did Romano ever pitch in a playoff game? Did the Blue Jays make the playoffs? I think they did make the playoffs like 2 years ago when he was the closer on that team. Maybe. The Romano is...
Romano has pitched in 2 playoff games in his career. The Blue Jays made the postseason in 2022 and 2023. In his postseason career, in Romano's 2 games, he has a 6 ERA.
Not good, but very limited.
But I will say...
But Hoffman also very limited, not a lot of success.
I would say with the 1 game, not good. The other game, very good. So he's Jekyll and Hyde. He's pitched 2 postseason games. The 1 game, he allowed 2 earned runs in 1 2/3 innings. The other game, he allowed no runs in 1 1/3 innings.
Yeah, I don't know which guy I'm taking, but I certainly don't feel great
innings.
with either one of those 2 guys. Like, if that's your closer in the playoffs, I'm not feeling great about either one of those guys.
Right, you're going option C, none of the above.
Yeah, so I want improvement. I want a guy who's better than the 2 guys that you're offering me right now. Can I find a guy better than the 2 guys I've been, that I had to choose between? So there's the game last night. Phil's win kind of going away. The game was never really a problem last night. I mean, you might have felt a little different because once you get into the Phillies bullpen, you get that feeling a little bit.
There's a little anxiety when you get to the bullpen. You see Laser come in, you're just like, oh, good grief. Not because you hate him, but just because you don't trust him.
No, I think people
bullpen.
hate him. Well, I think they're learning to hate him, or they're ramping up to hate him. Maybe
it's building
is the way that you look at. Well, I mean, I would say I don't hate the guy. I in my mind, he is not a playoff caliber relief pitcher.
Definitely not.
You cannot have him in your bullpen and expect to be a successful team that will make a deep playoff run. That's the way I look at things, right? If you are in my bullpen, what kind of success can I think my team's going to have if you are one of my options? Now, I get it. He would not be a high-leverage guy. I don't think he would even make the bullpen because think about it this way. You have 4 starters. That means one of your starters is either in the bullpen or not on the roster.
Right.
Like last year, Taijuan Walker did not make the roster. He didn't go to the bullpen. So because he didn't go to the bullpen, they had to find another relief pitcher. So I think this year, if everything stays the same, and I doubt that it will, but this year, one of your starters, probably Suarez, would move to the bullpen. That means somebody has to leave the bullpen. So I think the first option would be either Carlos Hernandez or Max Lazar.
Or both.
Because
there's always that
Well,
scenario.
I only put 1 guy in the bullpen. 2 guys can't leave if only one guy
I'm saying,
goes.
for example, one of the conversations we've had here, Mike, is, if you get to the postseason, do you throw Andrew Painter out there in the bullpen?
I think 0% chance of that happening. I've been pretty vocal about that. I don't see Painter pitching in the bullpen at all.
Well, they may just pitch the postseason at all.
We talked about that. I mean, maybe not. Bob Wankel talked about it on Monday. There could be a scenario where he pitches in the regular season, then he hits his innings limit, and then but I don't see where he pitches in the bullpen. I don't understand. We've talked a lot about this. Andrew Painter, they are handling with kid gloves. The last thing you're going to do is, hey, you had Tommy John surgery. We're not even letting you pitch every 5th day. Can you pitch on back-to-back days now? So the Painter in the bullpen thing, discussed ad nauseum. That's not happening.
Well, it's going to keep being discussed because of what happened with Ohtani now, that report.
I don't see where Painter and Ohtani has any connection.
Well,
Explain
Ohtani's
this
coming
to
off
me.
of major surgery as well.
That's a little different. Ohtani's also the designated hitter for that team.
He is.
So there's some strategic reasons behind that. Like if he's the starting pitcher in the game, he's also the DH. If he gets removed as the pitcher, how does that work? Does he stay as the DH? Can he stay as the DH?
He can switch a position, yes.
Yeah, I think the Dodgers are saying that he could be their closer.
That's correct. The idea now is of him being a starter for the postseason, they would get him to come back sooner and be the closer.
Yeah. He also has pitched. He has more experience. I mean, he is a guy that, Painter is 21 years old, 22 years old? I think there's a big difference that's the thing. They are treating him as the number one prospect in their organization. So I look at it like, hey, we want to be 100% sure that this guy is healthy and does not get hurt.
Painter's 22 years old.
There you go. And I'm not suggesting that the Dodgers don't care about Ohtani, but I think him pitching is cherry on the top here. He's an MVP of the league as a hitter. And if he happens to close games out for you, I think that's a bonus. Not to mention, I don't think they need him to close every night. They have other options. So it's like, hey, can you close game 1? Tanner Scott, can you close game 2? They've got other options too. So he doesn't probably have to pitch on back-to-back days. It's just, hey, we have another feather in the cap.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Whereas if you're saying, hey, make Andrew Painter the closer, now you're hoping, hey, we have game 1 on Monday, game 2 on Tuesday. Can you close both games out? I think that's probably not realistic. Maybe. I mean, I hope I'm way off on this. I hope I'm way off. Now, we talked about this with Todd Zalecki a couple weeks ago. Dave Dombrowski was quoted saying that Andrew Painter is not an option for the bullpen.
Right.
Now, could that just be for the regular season? And then during the playoff, they changed their mind? Like, if he pitches in the regular season and he's really, really, really good, and you say, but he's not going to start. We have Wheeler, Luzardo, Christopher Sanchez, and Aaron Nola. Those are your 4. We're going to put Suarez, and we like what we've seen with Painter. We're going to put him in the bullpen. Maybe he can close the game out. Maybe he can't pitch back-to-back, but maybe he's an option in one of the games. Possibly. And then you have Mick Abel, too, which it's a big start for Abel tonight.
Huge start, because this could determine his trade value.
If he gets hit around tonight, this is a playoff caliber team. I mean, the Blue Jays are not currently in the playoffs.
No, but they have a lineup that is a playoff caliber lineup.
Yeah, this is a much deeper lineup than the Pittsburgh lineup that he saw the first time. So it will be the biggest challenge of his professional career. No questions asked.
By the way, to your point, this is what Keith Law told you, Mike Gill, right here on the Sports Bash last week about how Painter might not even pitch this year for the Phillies.
With Painter specifically, he is still building back up from Tommy John surgery. He missed 2 years, basically. And so I would not want him to come up and take a regular turn in a contending rotation because he's not built up for that. Mm-hmm. Right? He is going to be maybe a 5-inning starter at this point. I wrote a piece a week ago. They got him working on his slider, which is fine, but it's like his 3rd or 4th best pitch right now. And that is not going to be a huge weapon for him coming up.
Yeah, I mean, he said he didn't think he's ready or may not be ready to help this year. I would imagine that they at least want to give him some major league work this year. But the Dombrowski comments last week kind of clouded that a little bit. When you look at Dombrowski basically saying, well, we don't have to bring him up. It's not like something that we have to do here, which kind of contradicts what they've been saying all season long.
We kind of projected him to be ready for Major League, and I've said in July-ish. What does that exactly mean? It depends upon how he does and how we do. But by no means is it guaranteed he's coming up to the major leagues in July, because if your other 5 starting pitchers are pitching great, well, he just keeps going there, and then you figure it out.
Yeah. Now, that part at the end where he says you just figure it out, is that an indicator that he would be open to moving Painter?
I think that's him just basically trying to not give any guarantees so nobody says gotcha later. Kind of like, you said this, and he could be like, well, I didn't
Well,
say anything.
he's already got a gotcha. You said he'd be up in July-ish. Now you're saying, well, we don't have to have him, so
Right, he's trying to change the narrative now.
yeah. I don't envy the position they're in. I'll tell you that much.
I
Like,
think
you got
it's-
5 starters
yeah.
right now, and that's with Nola not even pitching. You got 5 starters right now, none of which need to be replaced. Now, that's with
yeah.
Abel pitching tonight. Now, if Abel looks overmatched tonight, now, okay, Nola should be back here in 2 weeks, I would imagine.
Yeah, apparently the ankle is finally starting to progress a little bit better, and they're hoping to get him for I believe a minor league rehab start before he comes up here. So
You got Abel tonight, and then I guess he would pitch at least one more time, which is another interesting thing. Now, what did Keith Law told us about Mick Abel when we asked him about the possibility of, pitching in the bullpen? One of the problems with Abel, is the fact that where is his value? Would you, value him as a guy? If you're another team, is he a trade ad set, or is he a Phillies chip that help this team out here, or is he the guy that the Phillies really are pushing to try to call?
To me, he is, for this club, he's your 6th starter. He's the guy you call up when you need somebody, but he's not going to beat out any of the 5 existing guys. And if trade deadline comes along and you can get that impact left-handed reliever to replace Alvarado, and the cost is Abel and somebody much less important, I'd probably do that. As much as I hate overpaying for relievers, it's 4 years now. The command and control are not clearly getting better, and I'm a little skeptical. This first start was super exciting. I don't think that's who he really is.
Interesting. It's been 4 years, he's saying, and the command and control just are still not there for Mick Abel. But he gets another shot tonight.
And listen, if he pitches well tonight, or at least pitches solid, if he gets you a quality start, Mike, let's say he goes 6 innings, gives up 2 runs, you're sitting there being like, okay, well, that works. Thank you.
I don't envy them. I'll tell you that. I don't envy the position they're in with Abel, Painter, Nola, Suarez. Throw Sanchez into that mix of these 4 guys. You have 4 guys for one spot, one of which is Nola.
By the way, the next time Abel would start, at least as of right now, the opening on the schedule for him would be June 9th against another high-powered offense, the Chicago Cubs.
Well, I will be interested to see how he throws tonight. By the way, Phil's win last night, 8-3. It all starts, we mentioned Stott got that leadoff walk, Turner with the 2-run homer, Harper about a 400-foot bomb. Third time the Phillies hit back-to-back homers. But, we talked about it earlier, that Bryson Stott, the one thing that he's been really doing well as the leadoff hitter is taking a lot of pitches. But he's not getting on base all that much.
No, but he is averaging 7 pitches per at-bat, which is the best in the National League among all leadoff hitters.
Yeah, so how do you factor that in? We have a leadoff hitter who's seen a lot of pitches, but he's not actually getting on base. Is that a good thing, a bad thing? How do you quantify?
Right, is it almost a wasted at-bat?
Well, how do you quantify that? We have a leadoff man who's seen a lot of pitches, fouling pitches off, but he's not actually getting on base. I don't know how you say, is that a successful leadoff man, not a successful leadoff man? I don't know what to make of that. Because in the article that I read, I think it was from Anthony Sanfilippo from On Pattison, he was saying that Trey Turner really likes Stott hitting in front of him because of all the pitches that he sees.
By the way, Trey Turner, the last 40 games, you ready for these numbers, Mike? 341 batting average, 386 on base percentage for Trey Turner. Also in that stretch, he had 6 homers, 24 RBI, and 12 stolen bases. So I guess he really likes the idea of Stott being in front of him for some of
Well, some of
games.
those have been in the leadoff hole
Some
himself.
of them, yeah, but that has been the main run since Stott became the right-handed pitching leadoff hitter.
Yeah, that was over at On Pattison, Anthony Sanfilippo, who does the podcast, The Fighting Words with our buddy Bob Wankel. They asked how much longer do they see Bryson Stott lasting in the leadoff hole? And one of the things, his on-base percentage in the leadoff spot is .297, 34 games as the leadoff hitter. He's slashing 247 batting average, 297 on base percentage, 356 slugging. It's an OPS of 654. Not good. So his numbers in the leadoff spot are not good at all. Conversely, he has scored 20 runs in 34 games. Trey Turner, as the leadoff man, he's led off 16 times, and he scored 13 runs. So he's almost caught the amount of runs. Why? Turner's on-base percentage as the leadoff hitter is 363. Stott's is 297. So Stott has been doing a good job of seeing pitches and all that stuff, but he's just not getting on base enough. So the Phillies have to decide what they want to do there. Is there an answer out there? Well, we'll discuss. Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City joins us as we take a look at everything that's happening with the Phils as they get ready to take on the Blue Jays tonight. Game 2 of their 3-game set. Sports Bash just getting off the ground on 97.3 ESPN. All right, so the Phils made it official just moments ago. Mick Abel is getting the call up tonight. I know it's been announced. They told you, but the official email just got sent to me. Zach Wheeler has been placed on the paternity list to make room for Abel on the 26-man roster. Wheeler, of course, he will pitch probably Friday, it looks like. We'll see. But how big of a start is this for Mick Abel? What does Mike McGarry think about the start for Abel and the decision to finally make this move, and how the Phillies are kind of approaching this? All that and more as the Phillies offense. It's amazing how one guy returns and bumps everybody back one, and it really changed the dynamics of their offense. But they got up early last night, 6 runs in the first, 1 in the second, and then Christopher Sanchez kind of cruised along. Phils win 8-3. But Mick Abel tonight, Mike, will you be watching this with a closer eye on Abel and what this might mean for him and the Phillies moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's an interesting start for Mick Abel. Obviously, he kind of made his debut against the Pittsburgh Pirates and was outstanding. 6 shutout innings, 9 strikeouts, and really showed that he has a possible future with Philadelphia, but also showed that he could be an attractive trade piece. Now you go on the road to Toronto against a pretty good lineup. I know they didn't show it last night that much against Christopher Sanchez, but Toronto can hit the ball. They were hot coming into last night. The Phillies kind of cooled them off a little bit. Interesting to see how Mick Abel pitches on the road against a tough lineup at a park where some Phillies rookies, and I'm thinking Zach Eflin here, have kind of struggled throughout the years.
All right, so you got Abel tonight. We talked a little bit about this, but the indication from Rob Thompson was, hey, look, this is supposedly a long-term thing here. How do we see this all kind of shaking out now? We keep seeing all these starts. Does it look like Suarez is going anywhere anytime soon? You got Nola kind of waiting in the wings here, and then obviously Mick Abel, and then there's Andrew Painter. It feels like every time one of these guys starts, another peel of the onion happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a problem. It's not a bad problem to have, right? You have a surplus of starters, so nobody's spot is guaranteed. Obviously Zach Wheeler's spot is guaranteed, and I think Mick Abel will be in the rotation until Aaron Nola is ready to pitch, and at that point we will see what happens. So, I would expect that they would probably send Abel back down if there's no other injuries or something like that. But I think Mick Abel's going to get an opportunity here. I would expect it to last maybe 2, maybe 3 times through the rotation while Nola comes back from that sprained ankle. But when Nola's ready, he will return. He will return to the rotation, and I don't think you're going to see Ranger Suarez or Christopher Sanchez go anywhere at this point. And remember what Dave Dombrowski said on a podcast in New York. He said there's no guarantee that Andrew Painter will be called up in July if the Phillies have 5 starters who are rolling along. Dombrowski seemed to indicate that he would be comfortable keeping Painter in AAA. So I don't think there's a rush to get Painter to the big leagues as long as the Phillies have 5 quality starters out there on a nightly basis.
Now, let me ask you, do you see a scenario where Painter either A, pitches in the playoffs, or B, pitches out of the bullpen?
Yeah, interesting question there, Mike. I don't think they want him to pitch out of the bullpen because coming off the Tommy John surgery, I don't think they want him to rush to get ready. Bullpen guys, kind of need to get ready in 10, 11, 12 pitches. And even if you tell Painter, well, you're going to start the 4th inning, can he really go through his pregame routine and everything else like that? Mike, I have a question. Andrew Painter is an outstanding prospect and an outstanding pitcher and has a ton of talent. But, I think people are just kind of taking for granted that he's going to come up here and be Paul Skeens. He might very well be. But most rookie pitchers come up and struggle for a couple of starts. And the question the Phillies are going to ask themselves, if they decide to bring Painter up, are they willing to kind of put him in games and have him go through some growing pains, in the midst of a pennant race? I think that's going to be an interesting question to see. Like I said, the assumption right now, and I think it's a little bit too much of an assumption, is that Painter is going to come up here and be lights out. He's going to be Paul Skeens. I mean, a lot of good rookie pitchers come up and struggle for their first 4 or 5 starts. And now are the Phillies going to be in a position to do that in a pennant race in July. It's going to be very interesting to see.
Oh, there's no question. All of these things are valid, Mike. We've been watching Bryson Stott hitting the leadoff spot now. They made that move. It's been a little over a month now. 247 with a 297 on-base percentage. OPS 654. Is Stott, after a month of leadoff, the right guy for that spot, or is he more the only guy?
Mike, I'll tell you right now, great question. Here's what I would say. To me, get Bryson Stott out of the leadoff spot. To me, you know who should be batting leadoff? Let's put Kyle Schwarber back at the top. He's arguably the best hitter on the team, maybe 1A if you're going to put Harper ahead of him. Get him the most at-bats. The Phillies have a great record when they score first. Well, how do they score first? You put Kyle Schwarber up leadoff, and he hits the ball 400 feet into the right field stands, and you're up 1-0. I watch Bryson Stott a lot. I watch him play a lot. I had high hopes for Bryson Stott. With every game Bryson Stott plays, my hopes get lower and lower. His numbers at the top of the order are pathetic. You can't put a guy with those numbers up there batting leadoff. He does not hit the ball hard. The ball does not jump off his bat. It's been a big disappointment for me. I thought he was going to be the type of guy who could hit 20, 25 home runs a year, bat 280, steal 20, 25 bases. He might still be that guy. He's not that guy now. I would put him at the bottom of the order, and I would put Kyle Schwarber back up top.
All right, which would obviously make me ask, if you're putting Schwarber 1, who protects Harper? Because right now, Schwarber 260, leading the team in home runs. It's been a nice little spot there for him. He's their best one hitter. He's also their best 4 hitter. What's more important? Who hits behind Harper?
Yeah, that's the question, right? I mean, obviously, he's given some great protection to Harper, and you look at the candidates to sort of come in behind Harper, because you would probably go Schwarber, Turner, Harper, right? So who's the candidate to be there at fourth? I don't have a good answer for you, Mike. But I don't have a good answer for who should bat leadoff. It's not Kyle Schwarber either. So
I'm going to throw an option at you. I'm going to throw an option at you, and we'll get your take. What do you do with Justin Crawford? It seems inevitable that he's going to come up. Does he bat leadoff for this team, or do you just call a guy up and stick him in the 9-hole?
Yeah, that's an awful lot of pressure on a young player to tell him to go up there and bat leadoff. A lot less pressure to tell him, hey, you're batting ninth. Just go up there and have good at-bats and catch everything in the outfield. So a lot of pressure on a young guy. But I'll admit here, Mike, and you're leading to something right there with that Justin Crawford question. What is going on? You mentioned Stott. What is going on in center field with Brandon Marsh and Johan Rojas? That can't continue either. So they're going to have to come to some sort of decision as far as center field and getting more offense out of that spot, out of the left field, center field spot. So maybe Justin Crawford is an answer there, and maybe if he comes up, he can bat leadoff there. But again, asking a lot of a young pitcher, a young player, just like you'd be asking a lot of a young Andrew Painter if you came up and threw him in the middle of a pennant race all of a sudden.
All right, well, they're going to have that decision. I'd ask you, do you anticipate Crawford sooner or later, or is he like a last, resort, or is it like, okay, it's time? How do you see that playing out?
Yeah, I think at some point, Mike, he's going to be up here. And if you put, if you ask me to put a time frame on it, I would say, maybe after the All-Star break, leading into the trade deadline. That way you bring Crawford up, you're not rushing him up, and you're allowing him to play a couple of weeks going into the trade deadline. Because if Crawford can do the job, maybe that changes the way you approach the trade deadline. But they fast-tracked this kid. They put this kid in AAA, fast-tracked him. They did not do that for no reason at all, and he has responded in AAA. Now, look, I've never seen a guy play at AAA, and you hear different reports. His numbers are great, but he hits the ball on the ground too much. Who knows? But there's a reason why they put him in AAA to fast-track him, and they did, and he has performed in AAA. So I think you come up in early July, maybe after that All-Star break, put him in the lineup for 2 to 3 weeks, and that gives you a better indication of what you need to do or what direction you need to go in at the trade deadline.
What do you make of how do you quantify AAA numbers? I had a guy hitting, 340 with a 407 on base percentage. he's hitting over 400 against left-handed pitching. He's a left-handed hitter. How much stock and weight do you put on AAA numbers? Because people are saying, what more can this guy do? I mean, he's down there hitting 400 against lefties.
Yeah, I don't put a stock in the numbers. Supposedly, and again, I don't watch a lot of AAA baseball, but AAA pitching is supposedly not very good. There's some people think that even the pitching at AA might be better than AAA because at AA you've got more of the top prospects, and at AAA you've got guys who are kind of, hanging on a little bit. I don't put a lot of numbers, a whole lot in numbers of AAA. I think it's more of a feel, more of how they're playing, how they're hitting the ball, how they're pitching, things like that. I think to rely on the statistics is, you can't rely wholly on the statistics. Now, you look at Crawford's statistics, the guy seems to get 2 hits every night. So people are right. He's doing everything statistically he can to get up here. But I put it more of a feel. How does he look? Does he feel comfortable? What kind of contact is he making? Are the hits just bleeders? Are they seeing nice singles? Are they balls in the gap? That sort of thing.
Yeah, we're kind of. I said too. I mean, I don't put a lot of stock. I don't put a lot of weight in those AAA numbers. Now, that's all he can do. But my point is, you can't call the guy up, think he's going to hit 340 with a 400 on base percentage and start raking against left-handed pitching because he's doing it, against some quad A guy. But, I wonder, and I'll ask you what your thoughts is Justin Crawford the right piece that this offense is missing? Like, hey, bring up Justin Crawford, and that might solve a lot of your problems.
Well, again, asking a young guy to solve your problems is a lot to put on.
Let's just assume he does succeed. He's not a guy with a lot of power. He hits left-handed. So by the nature of him hitting left-handed, I think you have 2 options. He either hits leadoff, like Stott, and then you have Turner just hit 2, and then it's Crawford, Turner, Harper, Schwarber, or he's hitting in the 9 hole. So it's like a guy hitting in the 9 hole with not a lot of power. Is that going to help this offense out that much?
Well, yeah, I mean, he could hit in that 9 spot and act as almost a second leadoff hitter in that spot. So his ability to get on base there and start things going would be a plus for the team. If he goes out there and catches everything and can have good at bats, I think that would be honestly, Mike. You look at some of the at bats you're getting from Rojas and Marsh and even Wes Wilson on the other side of that platoon. If you were to put Crawford in left field or center field and just told him, hey, listen, catch everything, kid. Don't put too much pressure on yourself and give us really good at bats. That would be a big plus for this lineup because right now the numbers in center field are not good, and I don't think you're getting great at bats either from Brandon Marsh or Johan Rojas. So just if Crawford came up and gave you some good at bats and he was able to do that despite whatever numbers he puts up, I think that would be a step forward for the Phillies. And he'd give you an opportunity of what you're going to see going forward. And again, he tells you what you need at the trade deadline. If he can come up and solidify one of those spots, maybe you can put your resources more into getting bullpen help.
I would agree. I think, listen, Rojas, Marsh, those 2 guys you can't keep going like this. I think Dombrowski has to get to a point.
How many times are we going to watch it? I mean, last night, even in a game, they're rolling. I mean, a couple of Marsh at bats were tough to take. And it's not like it's been a week or 2 thing right now. This has gone on. We're about a third of the way through the season, and both guys kind of also struggled last year. So the center field spot, I think, is coming to a head. I don't think the Phillies can, look like this in August, September, and October the way they currently look in center field. I think it's got to change.
All right, Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City. The Knicks fire Tom Thibodeau yesterday. Fair or unfair? I don't know if you remember the old Nickelodeon Kids Court show. Is it fair or unfair? My mom made me take out the trash. Fair or unfair? Is this fair or unfair?
I'm going to say fair. I love Thibodeau. I like what he did for the Knicks. I like how he rebuilt the Knicks and turned them into one of the better teams in the NBA. But I understand, there were just some shortcomings with that roster, and maybe they need another voice to get them to the next stop. And it's not something that, it's something other teams have done. Think Golden State Warriors. I'm not saying the Knicks are going to go off and be the Golden State Warriors, but the Golden State Warriors got rid of Mark Jackson, who was a winning coach, brought in Steve Kerr, boom, went to another level. Other NBA teams have done the same thing. And I think when I look at the Knicks, I think they're committed to this roster, and they did not get, in my opinion, what they should have got out of Mikal Bridges. I thought he had a disappointing season. I thought he should have been a much bigger part of the offense. They should rely on him to create, to sort of take some pressure off of Brunson. Perfect example, that game against the Pacers. The Pacers were all over Brunson. Maybe you can put Brunson off the ball, let Bridges dribble it up, let him create. I think he's a much better player than he showed this year, and I think that's number one thing that they need to do going forward. And if they feel they needed a new coach to sort of, maximize this roster, I kind of understand what they did. So, unfair to Tom Thibodeau because he won 50 games and took the Knicks to heights they haven't been at in 24, 25 years. However, fair to the organization, I understand why they did it.
I'm on your page. I think the Knicks said the league is changing right before our very eyes. It's not that you're a bad coach. It's not your fault, but the league is changing, and I'm not sure you're changing with it enough, so we're going to hire Brunson's dad.
Yeah, I don't know if they're going to hire Brunson's dad. They might hire the guy from. Well, the other thing is I forget the guy's name, but the assistant from Phoenix that previously worked at the Knicks. They were pretty high on him. Supposedly he was going to get a head job. Maybe they didn't want to see him lose out on him. But yeah, I agree. The roster. Hey, the Knicks are one of 4 teams left playing. So for people to look at the season, you hear some people say, "Oh, it's a failure. It's this. It's that." It was an extremely successful season, but to win a championship, they need to get more out of that roster, particularly Bridges. They need to take some pressure off Brunson. It's very difficult to win in the NBA, Mike, when your best player is a 6'1" guard. It's hard to ask that guy to score 30, 35, 40 points every playoff game. And I think they have the answer in Bridges. I think that's why they traded 5 first-round draft picks for him, and they didn't get that much out of him. So get a coach in there that can maximize this roster. Again, unfair to Tom Thibodeau, but fair to the organization.
All right, Mike McGarry from the Press of Atlantic City, pressofac.com, here on the Sports Bash Phils tonight in Toronto. Thank you, Michael.
All right, we'll see you down the road, Mike. Thank you.
Mike's back on Happy Hour Friday as we take a look at everything that's happening. I'm Mike Gill. This is the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. All right, Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. Coming up in the next hour, the NBA Finals start tomorrow night. You can listen to them all right here on 97.3 ESPN. But what about the Pacers? We know Oklahoma City. They're 68 wins. They're the 1 seed. They were the 1 seed last year. How did the Pacers do what they're doing? And how far are the Sixers from the Pacers? We'll talk to Keith Smith and see what he thinks about all the Sixers options. And one question I've had for a lot of people, Tyrese Halliburton or Tyrese Maxey? Which Tyrese would you rather have? Because I think if I asked people at the beginning of this year, your answer would be Maxey. Have you changed your opinion on that? Has the league changed their opinion on that? We'll talk to Keith Smith, NBA writer from SpotTrack.com, next on the Sports Bash. Just after 3, Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Your home for the NBA Finals. They start tomorrow night. You can listen to them right here on 97.3 ESPN. It's an interesting matchup if you're a basketball fan. A lot of people talking about what the ratings might be. I don't know why that matters. If you like basketball, you just watch. Like, if you put these same players in uniforms that said Boston and L.A., would you watch them? Same exact players, just different uniforms. Great matchup, Oklahoma City. Oklahoma City is going to be good for like 20 straight years. But Indiana, we're going to look at them a little closer right now. We'll look at the matchup. We'll look at how these teams have been built. Keith Smith covers the NBA, SpotTrack.com. I want to dive into this Indiana team. They're in the East. Are they in the East? Are they the power to stay? Is the NBA changing right before our very eyes? All that and more right now. Keith Smith, SpotTrack.com, joins me to talk a little hoops on this Wednesday edition. Keith, what's going on, buddy?
A lot. We're getting ready for the finals. The off season comes very quickly in the NBA, but it's a great time of year for basketball fans.
It is. This Pacer team, we've been asking, okay, at the start of the season. I know the Pacers, they won the in-season tournament last year. They went to the Eastern Conference Finals last year, yet I don't know that they were like a prohibitive favorite in the Eastern Conference this year. So if I was to ask, I know our audience's answer. If I was to ask people at the beginning of the year, Tyrese Maxey or Tyrese Halliburton, how would that go?
At the beginning of the year or now?
At the beginning of the year.
At the beginning of the year, it'd be a lot closer. I think now there'd be a pretty good separation between the two towards Tyrese Halliburton. That's no knock on Tyrese Maxey, but I think Halliburton's gone up to a completely different level now where we can look at it and say, yeah, he's going to be a right-in, all-NBA guy before every season. But it would have been tighter before, but I think now, full season behind us, Halliburton's just elevated to a new level.
Right, and I would probably agree now, yes, the way Halliburton's playing in these playoffs. I guess my question wrapped around that is, they were both drafted in the same draft. Halliburton always kind of looked at as a pretty good player, but now he's gone to a different level. Do we see a player like Maxey, can he make that jump, or is he kind of at, when you look at a player like what Halliburton's done, and then you see a player like Maxey, like I think most people 2 years ago would have probably said Maxey's the better player, he's the better scorer, he's more explosive, and now all of a sudden it's kind of flip-flopped here, but do you see Maxey as a player who can get to that level?
I think he can. I think a lot of that will depend on what's going on with the roster around him, and are they winning enough games? That's obviously going to be the single biggest thing that will drive, where we think about him as a player. But, it's no longer enough for guards to score a lot of points. You have to control the game. You have to be a good playmaker. Those are the things that everybody's kind of looking for in a guard now, and it can be a little bit harder if your main value is scoring, which we still don't kind of know with Tyrese Maxey. I think we're waiting for him to unlock a little bit more as a playmaker for others. We know he can score. That part's no longer a question. It's, what can he do to kind of lift the other guys around him? And that's going to take having good talent and healthy talent around him before we can answer that question. But I think he's got the potential to get there. We just have to see it.
Right, and you mentioned healthy talent. We know that'll be a big part of the conversation with the Sixers, as always, moving forward here. Obviously, yeah, I mean, I look at it from that view is when you look at what Indiana has done, where did you kind of slot them at the beginning of this year?
Yeah, I had them as a playoff team, but a lower-end playoff team, somewhere in like the 5-6 range. I thought there were going to be teams ahead of them, and they overachieved on that a little bit in the regular season. And then going into the playoffs, I thought they'd beat Milwaukee, but I thought Cleveland was going to handle them with relative ease in the second round, and clearly that was incorrect. So, yeah, I was a little low on them, even start of the season and into the playoffs.
So why them? What happened? Why did they surprise a lot of people? Why are they the team now that it almost feels like, I think what Miles Turner said the other night really resonated with this conversation as to why I wanted to talk to someone like you, Keith. He said, young guys that get out and run, defend. It feels like the league is like changing right before our very eyes. And Miles Turner said, yeah, Oklahoma City does it. This is what we're doing. We're young. We get out and run. We defend. We actually like each other. Are we watching? So why Indiana? What happened with them that allowed this to, kind of happen?
Yeah, right around the first of the year, they really won. Halliburton looked like he was finally over all the hamstring stuff that had plagued him through last season, the end of the playoffs, throughout the summer with Team USA, and the start of this season this year. It looked like he was finally fully healthy. And then they really went to a completely different level defensively. Prior to the first of this year, the Pacers were a really good offensive team that defensively was just kind of They were just kind of out there. They weren't doing a lot to stop teams, and they seemed pretty content to win every game 125-120. Then they started locking in defensively, and that really took them to a completely different level. They've been one of the better defensive teams over the course of the second half of the season. That's continued through the playoffs, and that's a big part of why now they are in the NBA Finals. And then I think Rick Carlisle's use of the roster, using his depth, regularly playing 10, 11, 12 guys to make sure that they're all locked in and engaged has been really good, because whenever somebody has had to miss a little bit of time, they're able to go to the next guy, and that guy's ready to step right in.
Do you agree with Miles Turner that that's the league now? Is that the way? Because, it was the super team. He said, I think the super teams that's over. We've all kind of been feeling that the super teams are over, but are we now seeing that the super teams are over?
Yeah, I think so, because what's going to happen now in the league is you build up the team with like the three max guys and then kind of filling around it. Like, look at what Boston is going through right now. They've built up that team really, really well, but if you're not a title contender, you can't be sitting in the second apron. The restrictions are just too much, and it's no longer about will ownership pay, because that's always been a question of, are they too cheap to pay a big tax bill, or are they willing to pay and go? We saw several ownership groups were willing to pay the big tax bill. So now where we're at with these teams is what happens is with these roster restrictions around, you're pretty much, if you're a second apron team, you're signing your own free agents, you're signing minimum contracts, and you're signing your draft picks. And that's about it. Trades are really hard to make, at least any trades that aren't, downgrading your roster can be really difficult. So that gets really hard. And we're in a spot where you can't sit above that line for too long, because then you get into frozen draft picks and all the other things that come with that. So I think you're going to see more teams go with the approach of let's try to build it up organically through the draft, through smart acquisitions earlier in guys' career. We'll re-sign a couple of our guys, and then we'll cycle through the rest of the spots on these mid-range and value contracts, because that's going to be how you're going to have to do it if you want to have any kind of staying power as a team. Teams will be able to build up for a year or two and then kind of disappear, but if you want to have staying power, you're going to have to be really smart about the way you build out your roster.
You meant everybody talks about Halliburton, but the trade they made for Pascal Siakam, 2023, 2024, that trade deadline, OG goes to New York. They're in the Eastern Conference Finals. Pascal Siakam goes to Indiana. At that time, Philadelphia, hey, they ended up with Buddy Hield, and now you see the mess that they've turned into. But did you look at that Pascal Siakam trade as one that was as impactful as it turned out to be?
I didn't know whether it was going to lift them into the NBA Finals, but I loved that trade for them when they made it, because I thought, all right, they gave up some draft capital, but if you're a good team, you gave up picks that are going to be a little bit lower in the round anyway, so you're not too worried about that. They had kind of a full roster as it was, so giving up an extra pick here and there wasn't the end of the world. So I really thought they did quite well in that trade when they made it. It's just turned out to be even better than what I thought it was, but that's a great point of how they've built this roster. It's been the Tyrese Halliburton was acquired by trade. Great trade for them there. Aaron Nesmith came in a trade for Malcolm Brogdon. Great trade there. Siakam came in a trade. Nembhard was a second-round pick. Miles Turner's been there for a decade now, and we've had him in nothing but trade rumors for the last 7 or 8 years, and he hasn't gone anywhere. And then they built up their depth through smart free agent signings and, again, through the draft and a couple smaller acquisitions. Really, really smartly built roster in Indiana.
Do you look at that team with staying power? Do you think this is a fly by night? I mean, I know the rules make it tough. You just said, you might be hanging out for a year, but is this a team that has the staying power?
Yeah, I think they do to some extent. They don't know that they're going to be finals level, but I think they're going to be a very good team for years to come because Halliburton and Siakam are already signed long term. They're going to be there for at least the next 3 years or so. Their only free agent to note is Miles Turner. They've given every indication that they will pay the luxury tax next year, and they can go into the tax without getting too close to the aprons, which is really what becomes the real challenge. And as long as they're willing to go into the tax to re-sign Miles Turner, they've got a good, deep team. And I think they've done a good job, too, developing talent. Like a guy like Ben Shepherd, who's been coming along and even closing and playing late minutes over Benedict Mathurin for the Pacers. That's been huge because what that's going to allow them to do when Mathurin becomes a free agent, that starts to be, man, to re-sign him, now we're going to be really close to the apron and the like. And if they don't want to do that, they can let him move on and feel pretty good about, all right, we'll plug Shepard in to his role until it's time to re-sign him. And that's going to be how you're going to play it out. But so I do think they have definitely some staying power as one of the teams to beat in the East.
All right, we're talking with Keith Smith, SpotTrack.com, the NBA Finals tomorrow night right here on 97.3 ESPN. A lot of things we looked at, Maxey and Halliburton, and that, because really, I think a lot of people really thought Maxey. A lot of people here think the Sixers should build around Maxey. A lot of people want, Embiid traded, build around Maxey. Could you build around Maxey similar to the way the Pacers have built around Halliburton? Do you see that as a possibility? Is Maxey, in your mind, not a guy that you can really build a team around?
I think you could if you can show improved playmaking, because otherwise, it's great to have a really good scorer, but it's hard to build a team around somebody who their primary thing that they do, and really the only thing they do is score. You do need them to be able to do something else, and that's the thing with Halliburton. He lifts the team because of his playmaking ability. But I think you could get there if Maxey shows that improved playmaking ability. The challenge is, for the next several years, you've got Embiid and George, and you're going to have to work around that. And it sounds great to say trade them, but I don't know who's jumping forward with, hey, here we go, let's give you the real kind of offer. And if you trade them, you're probably trading them either guy at a loss right now, and then that's going to set you back. And by the time you're kind of building back up, now Maxey's contract is up, and where is he going to be? So that's the challenge with the way things are built right now. If you said, hey, just build everything around Maxey. That said, I think you need to go into next season with the idea of, hey, Embiid and George, you're still the guys, don't get us wrong, but you're going to have to play a little bit less of a role as we cede some of the responsibility to Tyrese Maxey, because he's the guy we feel a little bit more confident about being here as we build this thing up long term.
Keith, you mentioned George and Embiid. I'll kind of bring it back to those two about trade. I get the texts all the time. People, you got to move those guys. My answer is they have no value. There is no trade. Would you be shocked if Daryl Morey was able to move either one of those guys on draft night?
It's funny. After the Luka trade, none of this shocks me anymore. Like that was just so bonkers that it's like, I don't know anymore that anything. I used to always say, well, they're not going to do that. And now I'm like, I don't know anymore. Maybe I'm the one who's wrong on all this stuff. But I would be pretty surprised simply because I don't know who's jumping forward to say we want those guys. One, big contracts, hard to match the salary to get them. And then when you have the very long, lengthy, serious injury history for both players, that can be really, really hard for a team to convince themselves, hey, this is the guy. Now, what's funny is it could be a team, if they really wanted to go in that direction, a team like Oklahoma City that could say, yeah, you know what, we'll trade for Joel Embiid because what we can do is if he only plays 40 games, we're deep enough and talented enough that it's not going to kill us because we have the ability. Now, I certainly don't think that's where they're headed because they've got other issues with signing guys on their own team that they're going to have to figure out long term. But those are the situations where it's going to be a team that's like, man, we fell short of our goal and we need somebody to push us over the top. And they feel like that's the way. But I don't think that's coming, at least not this summer.
One thing is the Sixers do have pick 3. At this stage with what they have, the George and Embiid kind of albatross contracts, is it more beneficial to pick at 3 or try to get a player and take your shots with those two guys now while you're hopeful that they're healthy? I mean, do you pick a player who might not be ready to help you this year, or is it more beneficial to say, you know what, I got Joel, I got Paul, I got to hope they're healthy, but I got to get a better player. I can't get a rookie. I can't depend on a pick.
Yeah, that is a tough one because of where they're at, right? This team is very much built to win now. They're not built to let's kind of slow play this and build it up. But on the flip side, because of those guys' injury histories, I do think you look at it a little bit and say, you know what, we need to get more depth in here, and we need to be prepared for what happens, if they don't ever make it back. And then that way we have somebody, and they're uniquely positioned because of the way the lottery went to get that player this year. They're not going to get a true game changer franchise guy. At least it doesn't look like that. But they're still going to get a really good player to come in. And I think that part's really important. And you can convince me of a world where it's like, all right, we'll trade back with Brooklyn, pick up some additional draft assets, and maybe get a player in a trade like that where, maybe if they could get like Cam Johnson or somebody who comes in. Now all of a sudden it's like, all right, we're in pretty good shape here. We move back a little bit, but we'll still get a good player, and we got a good player who can help us right now. That kind of move makes sense. So just to completely trade out of the pick for a veteran guy, it'd have to be the real right guy. And I don't know who's trying to jump in to get up to 3. Had they moved up to 1 or 2, yeah, absolutely. You'd have teams kind of clamoring to get up there. But 3, 4, they're going to get a good player there. But I just don't know that it's going to be, hey, here's this great win-now veteran because we're starting over. I'm not sure that that's on the table.
Yeah, we'll see how they play this. What do you think about I think you tweeted this out about a month ago, or I should say a week ago, about Oklahoma City. And the fact that, I mean, this team, you're almost in a position where you're so good and you have so many assets, you don't know I don't even know where you go from here if you're them.
Yeah, and what's interesting is I've seen a lot of people, the response to that, which I think is almost a coping mechanism, is, yeah, but they're going to be too expensive to keep that team together starting next year. And that's simply not true. They still have Holmgren and Williams, 2 really good players for 1 more year on their rookie scale deals. Then they'll get them on their probably max or close to max deals after that. And then you got 1 more year with Gilgeous-Alexander. Then he'll move in to that range. So I think what you're looking at here is really you got at least a couple more year window where the team's going to be pretty affordable, but then they'll start to get expensive. But as they get expensive,
right,
then that's when it'll be, all right, it might be guys like Alex Caruso, Aaron Wiggins, Isaiah Joe that move on. But because they have this bounty of draft picks, they'll just use those draft picks to draft the next guy. The other thing is with all the extra picks, it's a little like when the Patriots were in their heyday, where Bill Belichick always seemed to have an extra pick. Then he'd trade that pick for a pick the year after and a pick down the line and kind of kick the can down the road. And then that way you always kind of had that extra pick coming. And that's what I think you're going to see Sam Presti do, because their most immediate concern is they don't have enough roster spots. Unless they can convince the NBA to say, yeah, you can roster 25 guys, and that's not going to be a thing. They're going to have to start a little bit of consolidation. But they are set up better than a lot of other teams to extend this run, and open this window a lot wider than I think what we're thinking about with a lot of these other groups that are out there that are coming forward.
Well, you just made the point. I mean, they have so many draft choices on the horizon. You got to making choices on who stays and who goes, because you're going to draft all these guys. There's not enough roster spots for everybody, and they're all high-end picks. I mean, they're all first. They got a lot of second-round picks too, but what, they have 10 first-round picks the next 3 years?
I don't know if it's quite that many in the next 3 years. It could be. There's a couple in there that are like, if this happens, then this. But yeah, they are loaded.
That's true.
With a bunch of extra picks through the next few years. But yeah, I mean, they're in a position where, and that's the other thing too. Let's say we get into a spot where it's like, man, I really want player X, is somebody I really want to go get. Then what I think you're looking at is they can say, all right, what do you need? You need 3 first-round picks? You need 4 first-round picks? And they can do it without, a lot of these other teams are looking at it and saying, man, that's going to be all of my draft capital. They can do it without blinking an eye because it's like, man, we're fine. We're okay. And then, there you go. So they're really set up quite well for making this a good long run.
Big time. Keith Smith, SpotTrack.com. Let's hit on a couple things. Number one, prohibitive favorite, Oklahoma City. Are you leaning that way? Can the Pacers make this a fun, entertaining series? Can they win it?
I think the Pacers are going to make this a competitive, long series. and I think they're going to be in these games. I think Oklahoma City's just enough better than the Pacers that they will win. My pick has been Thunder in 6 because that's what I feel like it's going to be. It would not shock me if it was like Thunder in 5, but all the games were pretty good ones. I just think they're just enough better than the Pacers. But the Pacers counteract some of the Thunder strengths really well. Ball handling, multiple playmakers, not turning the ball over a ton. That's huge against the Thunder. So I think they'll be able to stay in games, but I do think the Thunder are going to win.
Tom Thibodeau fired yesterday. Makes sense. Don't understand it. See the forest through the trees here.
I would not have done it. I think it's a little premature for them, and I think they're kind of placing blame on him when they didn't exactly give him a roster that's designed to win the way he has won games. That said, it seems like they felt like, hey, he's not the guy. And I think teams too often will be like, well, we can't do this because it'll look bad, or we shouldn't. And then it gets really ugly, and it never gets any better. So I kind of, if you've decided it's not the guy, make the move and do your thing. And I think now we'll see where they go forward with this.
That's an interesting one. Phoenix just hired a coach, Jordan Ott. He will be the new head coach in Phoenix. And most people, I bring this up because I think most people listening are probably like, Jordan Ott, never heard of a guy, don't know who he is. It's almost as like Tom Thibodeau is we talked about in the beginning of this conversation. The league is changing, and Thibodeau is part of the former kind of, world of basketball. And I agree with you, their roster probably not deep enough, but is he willing to evolve and change as a coach to this new style of basketball? The LeBrons, the Currys, the KDs, the Kawhis, they feel like they are kind of phasing out and this new era's coming in. And are these coaches from the previous regimes the right ones to take over? And I think the Knicks said, you know what? I don't think so.
Yeah, I think you're right with that. I think we're starting to look at the NBA a little bit of it is a changing of the guard. A lot of the guys who've been around for in LeBron's case a couple decades now, but the other guys decade and a half. Those guys are starting to age out. It's taking a lot longer than we thought with some of them, but we're finally kind of getting to that point, and the league's got a lot of young talent. The new second apron rules are so tricky to work around for if you're going to be a really expensive team in those things. And I think now what you're looking at is these younger coaches that maybe are a little bit more adaptable and aren't locked into this is how we play, this is how I'm going to do it. Those guys, we're just in that pendulum swing where we're on that side of it. Let's get some fresh blood in here. And I will say with Jordan Ott, it's kind of funny now, known Michigan State guy, Matt Ishbia, who owns the Suns, now his general manager from Michigan State, head coach from Michigan State. So just, we're definitely got some connections happening there.
If Keith Smith was in Daryl Morey's shoes right now, is this a spot you would relish to be in, or do you think this is a mess?
It's a mess, but that makes it a spot to relish to be in. This is kind of, a challenge to do this. Now, it's always a little harder when you're cleaning up your own mess, than the other guy coming in and cleaning up somebody else's. So if I didn't make the mess, I'm happy to come in and do what I can do. But I think Daryl Morey probably, I think he probably likes this challenge of, all right, how am I going to get this team back on track? How am I going to build, them back up? And, again, you get this unique opportunity with a really great draft pick, and they've got some interesting guys on the roster. They can, try to figure some stuff out. But I think they're going to give it one more run with the bulk of the guys they have, and then we'll see. I think next summer becomes the real kind of decision point if Embiid and George can't get on the floor consistently.
Well, that's going to be a big key, as we've all know that. We'll see how it all unfolds. The NBA Draft, June 25th, right here on 97.3 ESPN. The NBA Finals start tomorrow. Keith Smith is at Keith Smith NBA on the Twitter X platform, and you can check out all of his stuff over at SpotTrack.com. Thank you, Keith.
I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me.
As always, Keith Smith right here on the Sports Bash 97.3 ESPN. I'm Mike Gill. We got so much more to go, including Phil's back in action tonight, and football at 4 is on the way. But when we come back, here we go. It's today's edition of Stump the Sports Geek. 609-403-0973. Josh, are you ready for today's category?
You have been going out of your way to not even give me a hint about what it is today. So I am very intrigued about what the big secret is.
Well, tonight is the start of the Stanley Cup Finals. So today's category is Flyers Playoffs.
Interesting. Okay.
Your level of confidence is?
Probably the same as the Phillies playoffs, honestly. It depends on the questions.
The category this week for Stump the Sports Geek, Flyers in the playoffs. All these questions, 10 of them, will be about the Flyers and the playoffs.
A lot of orange and black talk coming up next.
How many questions will Josh answer correctly? 1 through 10. Text 609-403-0973 with your name, where you're from, and how many questions you think Josh will get right. This week you are playing for tickets to see Creed. They are playing at the Freedom Mortgage Pavilion. I think that's what it's called, right?
In Camden.
In Camden. And one lucky winner, whoever is the first to get the exact number. If multiple people answer with the same number, the first person who texted that number in will be our winner. If nobody gets the number right, it will be the closest without going over. If there is no closest without going over, it will be the closest with going under. So there's a bunch of ways to do it. 609-403-0973. Your name, where you're from, and how many you think Josh will get right out of 10. Playing for Creed tickets, the category is Flyers in the playoffs. Stump the Sports Geek. Next. All right, 3:33 Sports Bash this hour brought to you by Broadlee's Plumbing, Heating, Air Conditioning, your trusted source for heating, plumbing service, and installation for generations. Call 609-390-3907. Online, broadlees.net. Stump the Sports Geek. Today's category is Flyers in the playoffs. The Stanley Cup Finals is tonight. Edmonton and Florida. Rematch of last year's, won by Florida in 7. So to kick off the Stanley Cup Finals, the Sports Geek question this week will all be centered around the Flyers' playoff runs. Playoff runs, records, and the like. All you need to do, text your name, where you're from, and how many questions you think Josh will answer correctly out of 10. The person who gets that number correct the quickest will win a pair of tickets to go see Creed at the Freedom Mortgage Center. I believe the show is July something or another. Not 100% sure. I do have it in my email. I had it written down in the rundown. I don't know what happened to it.
Don't ask me.
It's gone.
I'm just over here enjoying the music.
Well, Promotions Jen sent it to me. Here it is. Freedom Mortgage Pavilion, July 12th. Pair of tickets. See Creed. Are you ready for this week's edition of Stump the Sports Geek?
By the way, a special guest will be 3 Doors Down for that concert. Now, I got to tell you, when I was at the concert last year, 3 Doors Down also opened for Creed, and they almost outshone Creed.
They all hang together. 3 Doors Down, Creed, Nickelback.
I got to tell you, 3 Doors Down put on a great performance.
I once introduced 3 Doors Down on stage one time.
You sound unimpressed.
Yeah. I wasn't impressed.
You're like Shania Twain over there.
Yeah, kryptonite. They are my kryptonite, 3 Doors Down. Are you ready to go?
I'm looking forward to these questions, especially considering the audience has a variety of guesses already coming on the text board.
Josh is a little bit of a hockey guy.
I am a bit of a puck guy.
All right, here we go. This week, Stump the Sports Geek, Flyers in the playoffs. Question 1. The Flyers last played in the playoffs and won a playoff series in 2020. Which team did they beat in round 1?
Oh, boy. See, I more clearly remember who they lost to, which was the Canadians. I remember that more than who they won.
Well, that is incorrect. That answer is incorrect.
I thought they lost to the Canadians in the next round. I'm already starting off to a bad spot. Who did they beat?
Yes.
That's the question.
Yep.
Man, I'm not confident about this at all. I'm trying to think back to me. That was the bubble. That was Toronto. The whole world was upside down. I'm going to guess that they beat... Oh, boy. Did they beat the Lightning?
That is incorrect.
Yeah.
They beat the Canadians.
Oh, they beat the Canadians.
They lost to the Islanders.
Ah.
In 7 games. In 2010, the Flyers made a run to the Stanley Cup Finals. Which team did they beat in the conference finals to advance to the Cup Finals?
Was that the one that went 7 games?
I do not have that answer for you. I know the answer, but I think that would be unfair.
Okay. Well, I know they beat this team along the way. So was it the Boston Bruins?
That is incorrect. They beat the Bruins in 7 games and then beat the Canadians in 5.
So the last 2 times the Flyers have had deep runs, they've beaten the Canadians.
There you go.
Interesting.
Which Flyers goaltender has the most career playoff wins at 45 playoff wins?
Ron Hextall.
That is correct.
That one I knew for sure.
It was close. Hextall's 1. Bernie Pranis 2.
Hextall played more games, though.
The Flyers are tied with the most playoff goals in team history. 2 Flyers, are tied with the most playoff goals in career history. They both have 53. Name one of the 2. If you get both, I'll give you a bonus point.
Well, my first guess is Brian Propp. My second guess would... Oh, boy, who would the second guy be? It was 53, you said?
Career playoff goals.
Career playoff. That's a lot of goals. Yeah, that's my one guess. See, I don't remember how many games Bobby Clark played in the postseason. Like, I know Clark's got a lot of Flyers records, but see, I got two names floating in my head, and I got to pick one of them. And I'm not hyper confident with either name I'm going to guess. So I am going to say the guy tied with Brian Propp, I'm going to guess, is Simone Gagne.
Simone Gagne has 32. Brian Propp has 52. Rick McLeish and Bill Barber each have 53. That is incorrect.
That was a fail.
Question 5. The Flyers won back-to-back Stanley Cups in 74 and 75. Which two teams did they defeat?
Well, this was before the East-West, so I'm trying to think. Somewhere Billy Schweim's screaming at the radio.
Oh, yeah, at all these answers.
Billy's just...
I would hope anyway.
Yeah, well, I don't know if Billy remembers who they beat in the playoffs recently, but Billy will definitely remember who they beat in 74 and 75.
He was probably there.
He's probably there.
Or at least at the parade.
Right, exactly. Back in the Spectrum. So I'm going to guess 74, 75. So I am going to say they beat the Islanders, and stick with the theme, they beat the Canadiens.
That is incorrect.
On both?
On both.
All right.
They beat Boston and Buffalo.
Buffalo. I would never guess Buffalo.
Question 6. Bobby Clark is number 1 in total playoff points for the Flyers with 119. Who is number 2 on the list with 112?
Well, based on the information you gave me earlier, I think the answer is not Simone Gagne. So I am going to say number 2. How many points? 112?
112. By the way, Simone Gagne is not in the top 17. For points.
For points. Oh, boy. Points, whatever. I'm going to go Brian Propp.
Brian Propp is correct. 112 points. Brian Propp is number 2. Bill Barber, by the way, is, Bill Barber is 3rd.
Barber was my other guess.
With 108. Rick McLeish, followed by Claude Giroux.
Yeah, Claude Giroux didn't belong on that list.
Question 7. The Flyers beat the Pittsburgh Penguins 2-1 in 5 overtimes in the 2000 Eastern Conference semifinals. Who scored the game-winning goal in the 5th overtime?
In 2000, I'm going to guess that was Keith Primeau.
That is correct. If you didn't get that one, I'd be really disappointed in you.
That was in my heyday of playing NHL 99, the video game, and then watching the game at night.
Question 8. During the Flyers' run to the Stanley Cup in 2010, which goaltender had the most wins for the Flyers with 8?
Michael Leighton.
Michael Leighton is correct. He was 8-3. Brian Boucher was 6-6 that same playoff run.
I remember that playoff run for that. That was the biggest topic to me, the whole playoff run, was who should be the goalie, who shouldn't be the goalie.
It was... I remember doing shows with Jeff Mosher over at the Taj Mahal, and we were battling about this. They started Boucher in game 1, and then they flipped.
Were you a Boucher or Leighton guy on that run?
Neither. It was brutal. Those two guys were not great.
You were looking for a guy off the street.
I think they started with Boucher in 1.
They
Leighton
started with
played
Boucher,
3,
yeah.
and then they went back to Boucher.
Correct. It was nuts.
Question 9. Which player scored the game-winning goal against Michael Leighton for the Chicago Blackhawks to end the 2010 Stanley Cup Finals?
Was that Patrick Kane?
Patrick Kane. That is correct. in overtime.
You went Harry Cowles on hockey there.
Question 10.
So we're already at 5. So now there's a group of people in the audience who are saying, Josh, get the next one wrong, please. And there's another group of the audience who are saying, please, Josh, get this right or else.
Generally how it works every week. Somebody picks one number, they want you to get it right. The other people who pick that other number, they want you to get it wrong.
I'm misframing. It's the number's 5 right now.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is correct. All right, question 10. In 1987, the Flyers lost to the Edmonton Oilers. They had 7 Hall of Famers. The Flyers had 1. Who was the Flyers Hall of Fame player from that team?
Well, I know the answer isn't because Brian Propp has not been put into the Hall of Fame yet, even though he should be. So, thinking back on that team.
There's a lot of hints on the wall over there. We have a Brian Propp jersey.
I can't even see those
signed by the
from
entire
here.
1987 Flyers team.
I can't even see those signatures from here, to be honest.
It was a joke, Josh. It was a joke.
Well, you made me laugh either way.
That's not hard to do, but thank
Sure.
you. Who is the Flyers' lone Hall of Famer from the 87 Stanley Cup finalist team?
Tim Kerr.
Tim Kerr is incorrect. The answer is
Mark Howell.
Mark Howell. 5 total correct this week in Stump the Sports Geek. Glenn Anderson, Paul Coffey, Grant Fuhrer, Wayne Gretzky, Yari Kerry, Kevin Lowe, and Mark Messier are the 7 for the Edmonton Oilers.
I could have guessed most of those guys.
Okay, well, they would have got you no points, and God have mercy on your soul. So you get 5 total correct this week. What did you think of this week's questions?
I think the last question I should have gotten right, and I overthought it way too hard. To me, the question about the goals was unexpected because in my mind, I'm thinking, well, they played fewer games in the 70s. So I would have never thought that Brian Propp would have fallen one short of Barber and McLeish. So good for those guys. That's impressive to have that many playoff goals. And it's like you played fewer games back
All right,
then.
so if you answered 5, you are in the running. Whoever got it in the fastest, whoever texted in 5 first, we will contact you, and you will get a pair of tickets to see Creed. Thanks for everybody who played along again this week. We'll do Stump the Sports Geek again next Wednesday here on the Sports Bash. All right, 352 Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. The free mobile app, live video, streaming on the X platform, YouTube, at Mike Gill Show. Subscribe on the X platform, on the YouTube channel, at Mike Gill Show. Watch on the X platform, at Mike Gill Show. So we do have a winner. 5 was the answer. Josh said a lot of people actually guessed 5. So who was the fastest?
Mark in Northfield was the first of 6 people to guess 5 today.
So 6 people thought you were going to get 5. We had a lot of entries today, but only 6 people thought you were going to get 5 right. Mark was the fastest of that group. So, Mark, you have won a pair of tickets to go see Creed at the Freedom Mortgage. Enjoy the show, my man. So, questions were who – Flyers played Montreal. They won that round and then played the Islanders and got Rochambeau. Well, they didn't get Rochambeau. They lost in 7 games.
They were just outgunned at that point. They ran out of steam at the end of that series.
And that was that wonky 2020 year where they had to play like those play-in games to get the seeding. Yep. They ended up getting the number 1 seed.
Right.
They played Montreal, who was the 8th seed. They knocked them out.
That was the year that gave us false hope and led to Chuck Fletcher basically destroying the salary cap.
Then in 2010, they beat Montreal to get to the Cup. They beat Boston, was that second round, and they were down 3-0, and they came all the way back and beat them, and then they went and wiped out Montreal. Ron Hextall, you said, was the goaltender with the most wins. Number 2 on the list, I think I want to make sure that I got that right, was Bernie Pront. Yes, he had 35. Brian Boucher was next with 21. 4th was Robert Esch with 13, and Pelle Lindbergh is 5th with 12. It shows you the how grim the Flyers goaltending situation has been.
Also goes to show you that if Pelle Lindbergh didn't pass away when he did, how much better he would be on that list.
Well, yeah, the precipitous drop after his unfortunate passing has been unbelievable, and they still don't have an answer at that spot right now. Rick McLeish, Bill Barber have the most goals in playoff history. They beat Buffalo and Boston in 74 and 75. Brian Propp, 2nd in total points. His jersey's on the wall in here. For those of you watching on the X platform and on YouTube, you always see that jersey up over my shoulder there. I've had that jersey since I was like 12.
Nice.
Yeah. Keith Primus scored the goal. I remember exactly where I was, West Virginia, bouncing around. I saw the 5 overtimes in 5 different bars.
Nice.
Michael Layton, 8 wins, 8-3 in the 2010 run. Unfortunately, he had multiple losses in the Stanley Cup Finals. Patrick Kane scored the goal. Mark Howell is the only Flyer Hall of Famer from that 87 team that went to the finals against the Edmonton Oilers, who play tonight in the Stanley Cup Finals. All right, when we come back, football at 4. Football and 4 powered by the Inside the Birds podcast, brought to you by Bet365. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary. At Bet365, Adam Kaplan's going to be here today talking a little birds with us. OTAs, I think is today the last day or tomorrow the last official day of OTAs? It's one of these days that's coming up for the Eagles, who obviously the Birds have a lot of questions on the defensive side of the ball. But we're going to take a look at some of the questions on the offensive side of the ball and who are some of the under-the-radar players for this team in 2025. But before we get to that offensive side of the ball, I do want to touch on a couple of the things that Vic Fangio said yesterday, which, number one, if you go back to some of the things that Fangio talked about, one, I think it's pretty apparent that we're going to see a wide-open competition for the safety spot at training camp, and then in the preseason games where you're taking a look at guys like Drew Makuba, you're taking a look at, obviously, Sidney Brown. He mentioned Tristan McCollum, but very intrigued by how they're going to throw Cooper DeJean on there. And the way that I kind of read that is I think Cooper DeJean is a guy that they want to say, we want to make sure that no matter what defense we're in, base, nickel, dime, left, right, center, up, down, all around, we want to make sure that Cooper DeJean is on the field at that time. We want to make sure that we don't have to take him off the field. So we want him to know every single position and every single spot on the field. So here's what Vic Fangio said about their plan for Cooper DeJean.
Yeah, I would like to keep him at nickel. And then in our base package, we'll find a spot for him, either at corner or safety. A lot of it will end up depending upon how the rest of the guys develop and where do we most need them. So it will be determined by what's best for him and what's best for the team. What's best for the team will win out in that decision. But he's capable of playing corner and he's capable of playing safety.
Yeah, the safety part of it is pretty interesting because to my knowledge, I do not recall him playing safety at all last season. I know a lot of speculation about him possibly being able to do it, but they did not use him in that capacity.
They did not use him as safety last year, but we do know that Cooper DeJean did play every defensive back position in college. So we know he does have experience moving around on a defense.
No question, yeah, and a lot of people thought that he would play safety in the league. Other people said, no, he's an outside corner. Well, the Eagles used him at inside corner as a slot guy. So that is the big one, that I thought from yesterday. The other one, quite frankly, this one I thought was more eye-opening, which is the Jahad Campbell. And I got a message yesterday from our buddy Sal Paolantonio, who emailed me when the news came out regarding Jahad Campbell. And, he said, first-round pick, won't practice till August. Had my doubts about that pick coming off shoulder surgery for an inside linebacker when Dean is nowhere near ready. Now, I would imagine there is a good possibility that when they kick off the season on Thursday night against the Dallas Cowboys, that Jeremiah Trotter Jr. is going to be the starting linebacker on this team. Now, it's not 100%, but Vic Fangio said that it's going to be mid-August by the time Campbell is ready to go. Well, let's say he has a setback and he's not ready to go by mid-August. So he's missing all of the July training camps. He's missing at least the first 2 weeks of, let me see, the first Eagles preseason game is on,
I think it's August 6th.
August the 7th.
I was close.
You were. It's a Thursday night. You can listen to the game on 97.3 ESPN. So he's not going to play. Mid-August is not August the 7th. If he says he's ready to come back mid-August, and that's August 16th is when they play. That's a Saturday against Cleveland. It's a 1 o'clock game. I can't imagine he's back on the practice field mid-August, and they're like, hey, you're right in the the Cleveland game. So best case scenario, he's back in mid-August and maybe can play on Friday night, August 22nd against the Jets. But if he can't, and he comes back in mid-August or late August, and it's, sometime around August 20th, 22nd, that last week of August, which, they have the game on 22nd, they have to make their roster decisions, and then you have that whole week before the first game. Is his first ever NFL snaps going to be on a regular season Thursday night game like that? So I think that was some pretty telling stuff from Vic Fangio yesterday. I thought that was definitely something that, a little like we knew Campbell was going to be a question mark to start, but he said mid-August, and I thought that was a little bit of an eye-opener, too. A lot of Cooper DeJean stuff. So that was a look at Vic Fangio yesterday. Adam Kaplan from the Inside the Birds podcast is here, but we're going to flip over to some underrated looking players on the offensive side of the ball. A lot of guys here that we want to talk about. I got a lot of questions for Adam, so let's bring him in right now. Adam Kaplan from the Inside the Birds podcast. Inside the Birds podcast you can get on all podcasting platforms. Just search Inside the Birds wherever you listen to your podcast. Adam Kaplan is with me now. And, the defense has all those questions Vic Fangio discussed yesterday, but everybody's just kind of forgetting about the offensive side of the ball where there's a lot of interesting storylines as well. So let's take a look at some of the underrated players that you're looking at on offense.
Yeah, so Mike, what it is we're calling them under the radar. This is the subject of our Monday morning show. And what we'd like to do every year at this time is let's talk about players that have a chance to contribute, either no one's talking about or not talking about enough. And that's really the subject of that Monday show. So we're going to give you some names here today off of that list. And the first guy, to be honest with you, when they signed him, I'm like, oh, well, he's just here to compete for the punt kickoff returner job. I didn't think anything of it until, Mike, Nick Sirianni. I don't know what happened. I don't know if Nick had a lot of coffee at the owners' meetings, but he talked like 3 or 4 minutes about Avery Williams. And Avery Williams, to start his career as a cornerback, then he moved to running back with the Falcons. He also was a punt kickoff returner. He had an ACL injury years ago. So he's kind of one of these guys that the Falcons can never quite figure out what he was for them other than a return specialist. But with the Eagles, sure, he'll compete for the punt and kickoff return job, but that's not all. They're listing him as a receiver, not as a running back. But, Mike, Sirianni kind of gave away the answers to the test. He's going to be a gadget player. They're going to find a way to get the ball in his hands on offense. And I probably will go to their mandatory camp next week. I believe the media's going to be able to watch that. It's only one day. They're the only NFL team doing one day for a mandatory camp. But hey, it's better than nothing. So they're going to do that. And Avery Williams really isn't doing anything. He's got a minor injury, so we'll see if he can work next week. But the big part of it, Mike, as we move forward here, is training camp, and that's been the story of their offense. And this offseason, they didn't really make any significant moves in terms of getting players from other teams. But, Mike, the backup group is very, very intriguing. There's no question about it.
Yeah, Avery Williams, by the way, probably will be at least the punt and kickoff returner, I would imagine, on this team. You're not going to see Cooper DeJean in that role, especially the way that Vic Fangio talked about him yesterday. It sounded like he was going to play safety, corner, edge, linebacker. He might be everywhere. Bugs Bunny for the defense. We were talking about this morning, about the Eagles' wide receiver depth, and somebody said to me he thought this was the most depth that Nick Sirianni has had since he's been here at wide receiver.
Really?
Do you agree, disagree?
No.
As we look, you look back at some of the wide receiving cores they have, they weren't very good.
2020 was abominable. That was actually before Nick got there. Doug Peterson's last year. That we really try not to bring that up. That was 5 years ago. It was we to say we were negative that year would be an understatement. On Inside the Birds, I felt bad, but our job is to tell the truth. And
there was a time where Greg Ward was their most dependable guy.
Exactly. Funny. You know what's funny about that? I remember talking to someone with the Eagles about Greg Ward. And he said, "You know what? He's our most mature receiver that we have." I said, "I think he's the only guy who's caught a pass for you guys." But anyway,
exactly.
So that was 5 years ago. But now, obviously, it's dominant for Brown and Smith. Dotson's the 3. None of that's in question. But 4, 5, potentially 6. They don't know who it's going to be. Johnny Wilson's not the 4. They don't know who it's going to be. It could be. He was last year, but they don't know that right now. Johnny Wilson's returning. He didn't really do anything. He was there to block. He's got to do more to make the football team, Mike. He's certainly not a lock to make it. We'll see what happens. Terrace Marshall's the guy I want to talk about. I remember talking to the Panthers about him over the years after they drafted him, and they saw something something in him, Mike. He's got really good length at 6'2.5". He could run. He's not a slot receiver. I talked about this with you weeks ago. He's not a slot receiver, but can line up inside. But the bottom line is here, he was signed to be a backup on the outside. He was a second rounder in 2021. He's done next to nothing in his career. He's had some minor injuries. He's now on his fourth team. But the Eagles clearly see something with him. They signed him before the draft. They signed him in April. They need someone who could run, who's got size. This guy's really, really intriguing. Like, the guy was a second rounder for a reason. I get it. Once you're drafted, Mike, it doesn't really matter what you did in college. It's what you do going forward. But there was a reason why the Panthers took him the second round. He has talent. He's only 25. He turns 26 actually next week. But the bottom line is, Mike, there's talent here, and there's a wonderful opportunity for Terrace Marshall. I know the Eagles don't run a lot of 11 personnel. They don't really do any 10. But if somebody gets hurt, Mike, there's always that question. Dotson's up first, then who's your 3? And that's the question. And Terrace Marshall has a realistic chance to make the team. But the contract would tell you he's got to prove it. 1 year, $1.2 million. Only $25,000 fully guaranteed at signing. That's like nothing.
I would ask you this on Dotson. You know, they traded for him last year. People were excited. Hey, he's a first-round pick. He really offered nothing. Do you expect him? Right. Do you expect him, now that he gets a full training camp, to have a bigger role, or is there just no role for a third guy in this offense?
There's really not, Mike. That's the latter is your point. Yes, there's value when they play 11 personnel, which is 3 receivers, 1 back, 1 tight end. But based on what happened, Eagles were a top 3 12 personnel team. That's not what we knew going in. That surprised us. They've never done that under Sirianni. But you change it up when you get Saquon Barkley, and the Eagles felt that asking Hurts to throw the ball 35, probably over 30 times a game was not a good idea. It worked with Barkley and Hurts, and that's coming again here. Though we have yet another play caller in Hurts' career, his 5th as a professional. At least his 10th in his football playing career, as Jalen outlined last spring when Kellen Moore came in here. Mike, it's amazing how time flies. So getting back to Dotson, he'll make about $2.8 million fully guaranteed. He'll be the 3. Now, Mike, here's where he's valuable. When you go 11, he's in. If somebody gets hurt, he's in. He's talented. I know that, as we reported at the time, Washington literally would have. I mean, it's funny because my understanding was the Eagles' offer was way better than anything else they got. But the bottom line is, Mike, Washington did not want him. The coaching staff and front office inherited him. They weren't there. It was a Ron Rivera draftee. He kind of blossomed as a rookie. He was never the same. But he did well, Mike. I'll tell you what. You say what you want. I know the numbers aren't great. His Super Bowl game, he did well, and he flashed a little bit late in the season. So to move this forward here, Mike, he'll be fine as their 3. But Terrace Marshall is the guy. I'm really interested to see this kid because there's talent there. They got to get it out of him.
No doubt. And you talked about Terrace Marshall and this wide receiving core. Is there another sneaky guy of this group? You know, Johnny Mitchell was a draft pick last year. Anaya Smith was a draft pick last year. So I think people might know them, but is there somebody else you have your eye on?
You know, you just said Johnny Mitchell, just so you know that. I just
not the tight end from Nebraska, sorry.
Yeah, good one. That's from the Jets, a former first-round pick. Wow, Mike. I got to give you, by the way, so you're going to laugh. When you, was it today's show? Oh, actually, no, tomorrow's show. We're going to talk about this. So you know how you guys called, which player did you get the name wrong? Mac McWilliams. Mac McWilliams, right. So wait till you hear the name that I brought up. I'm not going. Now you might get it because you're a Phillies guy. I'm going to give you a hint, Mike. And when you hear tomorrow's show that drops at 6 a.m., I have an unbelievable Phillies reference for those of you over 40 or 50. You'll like it, Mike. Now I'm not sure if you'll get it. If you get it, you'll laugh because you'll totally remember this guy. I'm not going to give it away what it is, but it's. You kind of have it in the last name, and that's all I'm going to say.
I was going to say, is it the lefty Larry McWilliams?
You got it. Damn. Now, okay, all right, since you brought it up, do you remember the way
he had 1 cup of coffee with the Phillies in '89? I remember.
All right, do you know the way that he threw it?
Yeah, he was like a side-winding lefty.
Right.
Like a real, very 80-ish.
Yeah, but here's what the thing was. Yes, everything you said is correct. But it literally, as soon as the catcher threw the ball, he put his foot down and he threw the baseball. Because he would he literally would not set up. He'd just get the ball and throw it back. And I remember I don't know if I had a 10-game Phillies plan, but I remember the umpire would come. Maybe they'd give him a warning, like stop trying to let the batter get back in the batter's box. Larry McWilliams, he was a tall, lanky lefty that was a sidewinder. No, you got it, man. I knew you would get it, though. I thought you would. I was telling Jeff that. I thought you would get that because you know your Phillies trivia.
In '89, the team was terrible. I'm like 12 years old. He was like 2-10 that year or something. He was terrible. But he spent a lot of. I'm pretty sure it was '89. Josh,
I have no idea. I didn't even look it up.
Fact check me on that.
I used to call him Larry McBilliams because of his Larry McWilliams.
Well, you know what I remember the most? I used to be a card collector when I was a kid, and I remember the picture of him. He had the Pirates hat, those old Pirates hats that had the rings around them, and like
the pillbox.
The pillbox hat.
Good call, Mike. Good man. You got me. I thought in the end you might get it. You were the one because you're great with your Phillies trivia. Nice job.
All right. So, how about a wide receiver?
Got another one.
Oh, he lost. He was 2-11. I said 2-10. I was almost.
Wow, how you even got close? Good job. Wow, good job, Josh. I cannot believe you remember that. Man, good job.
Yeah, I was a card collector for a while there.
Yeah, so was I. Yep,
so you got Terrence Marshall, Anais Smith, a wide receiver that could surprise that's on this team.
Yeah. We mentioned Terrace Marshall. By the way, it's not Terrence, it's Terrace, believe it or not. It took me a while to get that right. But this next guy, I'm super intrigued by. Again, I know, folks, they don't use their backup receivers, but it's this guy could be a returner, a kickoff returner. The guy that we're talking about is yet another player. I don't know what the Eagles' fascination with the Niners is, but they love signing their failed third-round picks. So Danny Gray is the guy we're going to talk about. Andrew Ducheco, it's really cool. Andrew actually interviewed him for his Draft Diamond Series in 2023, prior to the draft. He came out of SMU. He played 2 years at Blinn Junior College. That's where Lane Johnson went, if you remember, where he was a quarterback. He only played 2 years at SMU. Numbers weren't great, but, man, the tape was speed was incredible, elite. He was the second fastest receiver at the Combine in 2023. He really never did anything with the Niners. He spent a couple stints on IR, but this dude could fly. He was a Texas State 3A class 100 meters champion. Also did the 4x100 relay in high school. The guy could run. I know that Andrew's gotten to know him, and Andrew talked about on today's show. By the way, you got to hear it. This is a great show. Andrew and I broke down their off season plus obviously the Tuesday practice that the media got. But Andrew brought this up, how Danny Gray kind of hinted that he said, had he had the opportunity, had he been with them last summer, he thought he could have made the team. So let's see what this guy does, man. Again, it's not so much about how much he contribute. It's about, making the team with his speed. And also, you never know. Look, he could always sub in if they want to give A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith a break, and you know this guy could flat-out fly. That's the point here.
Well, we'll keep an eye on him. Donnie Gray, you mentioned third-round pick from the 49ers. Yeah, it seems like they always grab somebody in the third round that gets released out of there, and it's one of those classic, hey, you don't want him, we'll take him, we think we can get him. All right, let's go to another interesting spot, because there was a while here where the Eagles signed multiple tight ends, and the question was, are these guys going to have a big role? Well, Dallas Goedert's back. Now what?
And so, Mike, this is what we had said in our reporting back in March. Our feeling was that, because we know they gave Goddard permission to seek a trade, though he wasn't seeking a trade. They were looking to move him. They thought they were going to move him. They didn't in the end, which is great for the Eagles and great for the fans. They can make another Super Bowl run with him. But they, as you mentioned, Mike, you're right. I mean, they kind of went overboard at tight end, right? Calcaterra's back. E.J. Jenkins is back. They brought back Nick Muse, who they signed last year. He was on their practice squad. They brought in Cameron Letu. And then they really overdid it. Even if Goddard was traded, Mike, they would have had 6 tight ends. But we're going to talk about 2 guys here at this tight end position. The first guy is Harrison Bryant, who I've always been a big fan of. Charlie Weiss, the former Patriots offensive coordinator, I know Charlie a little bit, and I remember having dinner with him for SiriusXM at our annual NFL radio dinner at the Super Bowl. And boy, now his son was on the staff where he played, but Harrison Bryant he's a former Mackey Award winner at Florida Atlantic, right? But he's unfortunately been with quarterbacks who weren't very good. And then with Cleveland, David Njoku kind of was their starting tight end. He kind of broke out. So Harrison Bryant moved on. He went to the Raiders. Unfortunately, they added 2 tight ends. so he didn't really do anything. Eagles brought him in on a 1-year, $1.2 million deal. Almost all of it's fully guaranteed. $780K of the 1.2 is fully guaranteed. That doesn't guarantee you that he'll be on the roster. The money's small, but Mike, he can block. Like, he blocks way better than Grant Calcaterra. He's not the athlete that Calcaterra is. He's more run after the catch, but the guy can play. So he's an interesting player, Mike. He's better. He's more talented than Calcaterra, by the way. Just if we want to be honest here. And the second guy I want to talk about is Kylan Granson. 1 year, $1.75 million, $1 million fully guaranteed at signing. So more than Harrison Bryant got. Now, a couple reasons why we think there are other teams involved. One, two, Mike, he's a better athlete than Harrison Bryant. And Mike, Kylan Granson is not a wide tight end. He's not an inline tight end. He's an F tight end. You don't really line him up in line. You're going to line him off offset. And you'll see that with Calcaterra, by the way. Calcaterra plays at F position, where you'll see him when Goddard's in line, and you'll see Calcaterra line up a little bit to his right and behind him. That's where you'll see Kylan Granson line up. And, Mike, you could use him as sort of a gadgety player. So that's the intriguing part about it. What did Harry Roseman and Nick Sirianni see in Avery Williams and Kylan Granson? And maybe Jason Michael, who's their tight ends coach. I find the whole thing fascinating. I know they don't throw the ball to the tight ends other than Goddard much, but they do play a lot of 12 personnel. Let's just see what happens in training camp. I'm very intrigued by all of this.
Yeah, definitely want to see. You mentioned Calcaterra a couple times. We'll see if either one of those guys can kind of push him off the roster and change the look behind Dallas Goedert. Because we know, Adam, Goddard usually misses 4 games a year, right?
Yeah, you could bake that in. Now Dallas just turned 30, Mike. He's on this revised 1-year deal with a pay reduction. They don't know what the tight end position looks like past this season. So with so many guys, with just about all 7 contracts up, I know at least 6 of them are up. So let's see what happens here, Mike. Let's see. And look, as you said, you saw what Calcaterra and Jack Stoll did years ago when Goddard got hurt. You got the term is like coaches use talking about Jimmy rigging it. You figure out some way. It's like 2 guys become 1. Well, you know what? You got to figure out a way to manufacture offense at the tight end position if Goddard gets hurt. Let's see what happens.
All right. Well, obviously next week you mentioned the mandatory and then a little hibernation and for the Eagles, and they'll get ready for training camp, which is about a month and a half away for the Philadelphia Eagles. I think we're 92 days to the kickoff for the season. Adam Kaplan, everybody, here from the Inside the Birds podcast. Check that out on all podcasting platforms. Thanks, Adam.
Thanks, man.
All right, there you go. Adam Kaplan, everybody. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, live video streaming on the X platform, YouTube at Mike Gill Show. Yes, sir?
Just want to confirm, yes, you said Larry McWilliams was 2-11 with the Phillies in 1989 before they traded him to, do you remember?
I know he was on Atlanta.
He started his career with Atlanta, correct?
Pittsburgh.
Yep.
Philadelphia.
89. They was traded.
I want
mid-season.
My guess is, total guess, I want to say is the Padres.
He was traded to the Kansas City Royals.
Don't know why Padres entered my mind, but did he ever play for the Padres?
I don't see Padres. I see Cardinals on there 1 year.
Gotcha. My depth of knowledge of Larry McWilliams only goes so far.
Honestly, you did pretty good, honestly. Who cares about the Padres?
All right, 424. Football at 4 each and every day. We give you football here on the Sports Bash. Nobody else does it. We do. Football every day. Sports
Nobody
Bash.
else knows about Larry McWilliams but the Sports Bash.
Yeah, I know stupid things like that.
Usually I'm the one who knows the stupid stuff. I guess it's your once a month.
Friday, we're live at LPGA outside McGettigan's 19th hole. If you're going to the LPGA this year, stop over and see us. Phil's lineup out? It's got to be out, right? Got to have a Phil's lineup out by now, right?
That's a good question. I didn't see it earlier.
Were you looking?
I was actually looking at 4 o'clock.
Here you go. Stott, Turner, Harper, Schwarber, Bohm, Casti, Kepler, Real Muto, Marsh. Nothing exciting.
Yeah, dropped 5 minutes ago.
Yeah, they keep
us on our toes.
They keep kind of throwing that same line about Stott, Turner, Harper, Schwarber, Bohm is now in the 5-hole. Casti 6, Kepler, Real Muto, Marsh. And Mick Abel goes tonight. By the way, it's a 7:07 startup in Canada.
By the way, what did you think of McGarry's suggestion about Schwarber going back to the top of the line?
Yeah, I don't know. He's a big hole behind Harper in the 4-hole. By the way, Bichette, Guerrero, Barger, Kirk, Springer, Lukes, Rodin, Klaas, Jimenez. That's the Blue Jays. They got Vlad hitting in the 2-hole. All right, we got Nuggets on the way. Nick Earnshaw has Nick's Nuggets next, right here on the Sports Bash. All right, 4:32, Sports Bash time for the Nuggets. Today they're brought to you by the Hub Gear that works as hard as you do. Nick Earnshaw is host of the Shift Podcast. He is the producer of The Locker Room Weekends on 97.3 ESPN. And he joins me now for another edition of Nick's Nuggets on the Sports Bash right here on 97.3 ESPN, the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app, live video on the Twitter X platform, YouTube at Mike Gill Show. Nick Earnshaw is here with today's Nuggets. What do we got, man?
What's going on, Mike Gill? And, I got to address something from yesterday, too. I'm a big laugher. I understand that. You know what else I realized I did because of that conversation yesterday that I do? It's virtual. I do a virtual ha-ha at a lot of the end of my text messages. I add the ha-ha at the end. So it's not just in person. It's a virtual thing, too. So I had the ha-ha at the end of the text messages. I prefer the H-A-H-A over the emoji.
I'm okay with the virtual laugh.
Okay, so you're cool with the virtual laugh.
Yeah, because I don't have to feel the uncomfortability because I'm not in the same room.
See, I can still you could still feel it though over text, don't you? I still feel like text messages. I like reading people's voices and how they'd enunciate it. That's just my crazy brain, I guess.
Yeah, I have no problem with the virtual laugh because it's the uncomfortability is not there when you're not there with me. I don't feel uncomfortable about not laughing when you're not there.
See, I read it in everybody's voice when I'm texting somebody.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. I'm not there.
Voice. Yeah, but you're technically there. In my brain, you're there.
It doesn't make any sense.
The
whole point of the uncomfortability is that you're standing right in front of me laughing at something that I am not finding funny.
When you're reading a text message, I want to get the audience's opinion on this too. So text it in too. Do you read text messages in that person's voice, like in your head?
I could not like what you're saying, but I could say like I could see that guy saying that. Like I can hear him say that, like the way that it's written out.
See, I like hear text messages. I don't know. That just might be me. I might.
Yeah, like when Billy sends a text, he says it. He writes the text in the way that he would say it, and you can hear him saying what he says.
Yes, absolutely. I hear the yelling and the laughing from miles and miles and miles away. He could send me a text across the globe, and I'd hear that text. So that's my point. All right, moving along. Nugget number one. We got to talk about some of these Philly athletes. I mean, things are getting misconstrued, different perceptions from front office to the player. We want to start with Jeff Hoffman, Mike Gill. I saw this story last night. He talked before the game, addressed certain situations in his contract negotiations in the offseason. We remember how Dave Dombrowski said, quote, they pursued him aggressively, Mike. And then, quote, from Hoffman last night said, quote, they were pretty light negotiations. So he felt that the Phillies did not go after him as aggressive as Dave Dombrowski made it out to be. We know the bullpen issues that have continued this year. I mean, they essentially swapped him for Romano, but I thought that was very interesting that there's two different perceptions there from the front office of the Phillies and the way he was pursued in Hoffman's eyes.
Yeah, and I don't know who I believe on this one. I don't know why Hoffman would lie. I don't know why Dombrowski would lie. I think that Dombrowski, though, has more reason to lie. His bullpen stinks. So he's saying, oh, we aggressively went after this guy. Just, where the other guy's saying, no, they didn't. No, they didn't. So I think Hoffman is probably the one that I believe a little bit more in this situation.
Yeah, I feel like I'm there, too. I mean, listen, Romano has struggled, too. Hoffman started off strong. It's like they swapped, right? Like Romano started off really bad, has come along a little bit as of late. Hoffman had the great start to the year, has struggled as of late. His ERA is like just under 6 at this point. But Hoffman was really good for you for a couple of years. And, a lot of people would have liked to see him come back. He was, being targeted as a starter by a lot of teams, including the Atlanta Braves. But then that fell through because of the situation with him getting hurt and all that type of stuff. The weird stuff would happen in Baltimore too. But I was shocked, especially after all those physicals that did not work out with Atlanta and the Orioles and all that. I'm surprised the Phillies didn't pursue him more after that and say, hey, we can get him a little bit cheaper.
I agree. Now, I don't remember the deal he ended up getting. Once he failed in Baltimore and in Atlanta, it was like, hey, maybe here's our chance. They're going to swoop in there. Now, there was rumors at one point that I think teams were like possibly looking at him as a starter, and that he was like looking to go that route, and that never materialized either. Yeah, the whole thing is a little wonky.
Yeah, and Dombrowski saying aggressive and Hoffman saying light. I mean, I think I'm with you. I think I believe Hoffman a little bit more. It's just, I guess it's how you perceived it. In their eyes, for the Phillies front office, they probably looked at it. We pursued him as aggressive as we like to pursue him. And then Hoffman was like, well, they really didn't. In our eyes, it was kind of light in that sense.
Yeah, I think Hoffman, wanted to come back here. I think that's pretty evident. But and by listening to the way this kind of thing all happened, it sounds like he wanted to come back, and the Phillies were kind of like, we're ready to move on.
Yeah, I think that's kind of how it played out. Now, who would you rather have at this point? I mean, guys, they both had similar seasons. Romano or Hoffman? Who would you rather have?
It's a tough one, man. I mean, Hoffman's having a better year. I know he hasn't been as good as late, but he still only has a 110 whip. Romano, who's been better recently, his whip is still like 1.5 or higher. I don't trust either one of them, quite frankly. I think, man, if I'm picking one over the other,
I stumped you.
I'll take the best version of Romano in Toronto.
Okay.
Can I do that?
Yeah, sure. Why not? I mean, hopefully we can get that version towards the end of the year, because right now both of them have not really panned out either way for the Blue Jays or the Philadelphia Phillies. All right, moving along. Speaking of being misconstrued and being on different wavelengths, I don't know if you saw within the past couple of hours, our old buddy CJ is posting on social media and responding to Vic Fangio's comments about the salary cap. That's why they moved on. So he posted on his Instagram stories. He actually deleted one of them already. Of course he did. Yeah,
he does this all the time, where he puffs his chest out and then all of a sudden he rescinds.
So he quoted, it was a graphic post to Fangio's comments about the salary cap. He said, "Just don't do them, young guys, like y'all did me." So that was one of them. Then he followed that up by, "I was a test dummy for them, so now they can be like my scheme works, or did my skill set make it work? I had zero issues. People had issues with me. So yeah, let the salary cap be the excuse." Mike, your reaction to some of those comments?
I'm over C.J. Gardner-Johnson. I'm like, I liked him here as a player. When they brought him back, I was like, okay, good job. He wins the Super Bowl, 6 interceptions. Don't know how they're going to replace him. Don't know how that's all going to look. But this happens all the time. He's all over the place. Hey, just move on. Just move on.
Yeah, I mean, remember, he right before he left, I mean, he had that little spat with Darius Slay too.
Yeah, this is a drama-free zone, the Eagles locker room. And regardless of whether you think you're drama or not, you're always in the middle of it. He's always in the middle of it some way, somehow. Whether I don't need any social media stuff. That's why people want to tweet at me and troll me. I just tweet back in a friendly manner. I don't really care. You want to waste time in your life tweeting at me? Fine. I'll tweet back. Social media stuff is so ridiculous, petty. If that's what C.J. Gardner-Johnson, I'm out, dude. I'm out. I supported the guy. I like the guy. I didn't want them to trade him. But this stuff's nonsense. Oh, it's salary cap stuff. So go ahead and say that. What do you want him to do? Come out, make a TikTok video with everybody dancing in the secondary saying, "We traded you. We traded you. You stink." I mean, what do they want? What does he want?
I love when there's social media drama and we get to talk about it on the Nuggets. It's so much fun. It's just so much fun, because why on earth does he doesn't have to respond to this. He's gone. He went to a Super Bowl twice, won once with the Eagles. You're gone again. I mean, hey, he's got something to stand on because they went both years that he was on the roster. I'll give him that. But other than that, dude, stop. It's just they don't want to deal with your crap. And he's posting on social media again. You're proving everybody's point about you.
Absolutely. Look, the team won a Super Bowl, can't win every year, and if it's because they traded him and the reason they didn't win, oh, bummer, but you got to move on. He's got to move on. They need to move on. It's too much.
Yeah. All right. Enough of CJGJ and the drama on his Instagram stories. He keeps posting. He's posting clips too. I've been monitoring it because I have no life. But we'll move on to nugget number 3. All right.
You know, it's funny. I think Twitter now, or X or whatever, I feel like they now know people who are trolls, and they don't even give you alerts when they message you anymore. I'm sad about that. Like,
you don't like that?
No, I like when the trolls waste time in their life to tweet at me. I miss it. Now I don't even see them anymore because like Twitter's saying, all right, dude, you've wasted your time. I am no longer going to alert the person that you're that big of a loser.
That means they're doing. I guess it's getting better. I guess X is getting a little bit better. But
they are. It's like you spent your whole day
spam, right?
I'm not getting that either. I'm getting no alerts now. Nothing. I'm just getting like, I think Twitter's like, dude, you wasted your whole day scrolling this guy's whole feed and answering every one of his things. We're no longer going to alert him that you've messaged him. So that's what Chauncey Gardner-Johnson is to me now. I'm not even checking his stuff. I'm out. I get no alerts on Chauncey Gardner-Johnson.
Mike, they done you a favor. You're on DND, essentially on Do Not Disturb. You don't have to be bothered by it now.
Oh, I like it. I'm a fan.
I like going. I like going at it too a little bit. I mean, I never mind going at it. It's fun. It is a good time. So I will actively search for it. So that's the difference between you and me. I will actively search for it. But anyway, I want to get into something interesting, and this is for nugget number 3. Saquon Barkley. He was on one of Josh's favorite podcasts, the Green Light podcast, with Chris Long, and he talked about his future a little bit. Take a listen here, Mike, to Barkley with Chris Long about his future. Take a listen.
Do you imagine yourself as one of these guys that wants to do it until the wheels fall off?
It's a great question. I'll probably be one of those guys that it'll be out of nowhere. Like, I'll probably just wake up one day, whether it's next year or 2 years or 4 years, and just be like, yeah, it's over. I don't think I will ever lose that passion. The competitive nature is always going to be there, but I like probably my favorite player all time is Barry Sanders. So probably similar to that. Maybe one day, it'll be out of nowhere. I'll probably be balling and just be like, yeah, call it quits.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. If he just want Frank Ragnow, one of those type of decisions where you're just like, wait, what? 29 years old? I mean, he did just sign this extension. I wouldn't think you have to worry about that during his time in Philadelphia or anything like that. I think he will play out his deal here.
My thing is, do you mind him being so open about it publicly? Like, I might just call quits in a year or two, or I might just fax it in like Barry Sanders did. I mean, that's kind of interesting coming off a season you just had. You got Madden cover. He's been all over the place during the offseason. Do we mind him being so open publicly about it?
Yeah, I don't care. I mean, listen, and now you're not as surprised if he does it. Now you can say, see, he told you he was going to do it. So now, it's like, I'm sure the team might talk to him and say, hey, can you give us a timeline? Do you have an idea in your head? Because we just gave you this contract.
Right.
We just,
Yeah, so if you're looking at it from the team perspective, that's why I'm like, being a little open publicly about it, I get it, but you got to have that conversation with the team. You just, they just put a lot of money into you and sign you to a longer-term extension. That was interesting. But
it definitely was. No, I agree. The fact that he came out and was, forthcoming about it, hey, don't be surprised if I just fax my paperwork in. Do fax machines still work?
That's what I wanted to ask you. I mean, what's today's version of faxing it in? Is it a DM to the Eagles or a DM? I don't even know. What do you do at that point? Send a tweet out? I'm done. That's it. I guess that's today's version.
Yeah. What is the official way of making an announcement? You ever watch the Eric Lindros thing on NBC Philadelphia?
Yes.
So that whole trade got messed up because of the fax machine.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I don't think Saquon will use it as a fax machine. Maybe, podcast, I could see maybe he goes on Podcast P's podcast, Philly Sports. Utilize that avenue. It's more today's day and age. Do it through social media. Maybe you just send a tweet out, Instagram post. I don't know how you do it. Maybe you send a DM to somebody and they post a DM. You get creative here in today's day and age, Mike.
Yeah, exactly. You're basically saying, I'm going to put up a TikTok video. Do you want me to do another TikTok video?
Mike, I'm enjoying your TikTok videos before the show. They have been fantastic. Absolutely fantastic job.
Yeah, that's our boy. That's our boy Nate down the hallway. Nate.
Oh, I love Nate. Nate's the man. Nate is the man. All right. got to get to nugget number 4 real quick. I got tons of nuggets for you, by the way, today. It's nugget number 4. Did you know it got announced today? The Eagles will receive their Super Bowl rings on Friday at an event. Super Bowl rings. What do you want to see on that Super Bowl ring, Mike?
Well, what was it? What was the final score of the game? I mean, I should know this. I know the other one was 44-31, but what was it?
40-22.
All right, so 40-22 is engraved, right? You put that in there.
Okay, that has to be on there. Anything else on?
Yeah, you put that score, engraved in the side. You put the logo of the Super Bowl, which number it is, and then that number is the amount of diamonds that you use. What was it, 58, right?
59.
59. The 59. So you have 59 diamonds in there to commemorate the 59th Super Bowl. So you put the logo, the 59 diamonds on top, the Eagle logo there. You get your name, all that jazz. I mean, yeah, make this thing that you can never wear it. That's the whole point of getting the ring, so that you never actually put it on.
Now, supposedly there's reports they're anticipated to be one of the most expensive ever crafted. Like, they're going to be the most expensive rings ever crafted for a championship ring. I love the ring reveal. I mean, that's so awesome. We saw the video of them a couple months ago getting it size fitted. I'm thrilled to see this. Are you going to get like maybe a replica ring or anything like that?
No, because I will say, listen, the team that I coach, when we won the World Series, we have rings for that team.
Nice.
And while it's a very nice commemorative memory, I'm wondering what those guys who got the rings are doing with those rings now.
Do you think collecting dust at this point?
Well, I mean, like, it's like everything. Like, all these guys, like, you get a commemorative ring. The amount of money that they spend on the Super Bowl ring is a complete waste in my mind.
It's nuts. It's nuts. And this is going to be the most expensive, supposedly. So we'll see.
Well, every year,
it gets more.
It gets more and more. So that's not a surprise. It's always like, well, we got to spend more than they did the year before, yada, yada, yada. But, while it's cool, you're like, we're getting rings, you got rings. When are you ever wearing said ring?
True. I feel like special events, for the most part, some guys sell it off at some point in their life. Later, you see stories about that. All right, before I get out of here, I'm going 5 nugs today, okay? I have a little beef from Stump the Sports Geek, all right? I have a little beef from that segment today.
Okay.
So the one question you asked was the playoff goals, most playoff goals in Flyers history, okay? Now, McLeish and Barber are tied, right, at 53. They both have 53. So wouldn't that make Prop 52? They're tied for 1.
That wasn't the question. That wasn't the question.
Did I hear it wrong? I don't know. What was the question? What was the exact question?
2 Flyers are tied with the most playoff goals in team history.
Okay.
Name one of them.
Okay, so it was you just had to name one of them then.
Yeah, and I said if you get both, I'll give you a bonus point. I didn't ask for who was number 2. I said 2 guys are tied with the most. Name one of those 2.
Okay. All right. I thought I heard it differently. That's all. Okay. I wanted to clarify. I wanted to clarify for that final nugget, because Prop's second, and then McLeish and Barber are 1.
Would you like to see the spreadsheet of the question?
No, I don't need to see it. I believe you.
Well, I'll just show you what the behind the scenes looks like. There you go.
All right. I'm good.
You see right there. It is question number 4.
Yeah, I see it. All right. I like it. I'm good. I'm good with it. I thought you were asking for the first 2. I think I misheard it. I was doing stuff. So I wanted to clarify that, because I knew he was 1 and 2, and then they were tied for 1, and then 2 would be Prop.
Yeah.
All right. There we go. All right. 5 nuggets for you today.
All right. There you go. 5 nuggets today on Nick's Nuggets on the Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN, and they are brought to you by the Hub, gear that works as hard as you do. I heard your Saturday just opened up.
Yeah, Saturday's open now. I'm out because the BFL, it is being moved to I believe August. I think that's the date now. So gotcha. Yes, opened up on Saturday.
All right, we'll see you tomorrow.
Peace.
Oh, by the way, Earnshaw is going to be with me on Friday over at the LPGA.
Yeah, I'll be there Friday. That's good. I can't wait for that. It's always a fun event.
Live nugs.
All right. We'll see you then.
See you, man.
Peace.
All right, we got one more hour of Sports Bash left to go. A lot of things on the docket for today, including, holy mackerel, interesting take from Draymond Green. right? We'll hear what he had to say. Also, Adam Silver confirmed it will be USA versus the world for the All-Star format. Adam Silver spoke a lot today on the state of the NBA. Saquon will continue to talk about a little bit the comments that he made on the Greenlight podcast. And should the Phillies move Kyle Schwarber back to leadoff? That's what Mike McGarry said he would do. All that and more next hour. Sports Bash. 5 o'clock drive home. You're getting off for work. We got you for the final hour of the show. Don't forget, it's draft month. Sixers, third pick of the draft. Round 1, Wednesday, June 25th. Thursday, June 26th for round number 2. You can listen to the draft on 97.3 ESPN. The NBA Finals begin tomorrow night, and you can hear them right here on 97.3 ESPN. We got one final hour. Ryan Rothstein joins me for it. Here we go, little Rye or Cy. What do we got hanging out on a Wednesday edition of the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN? So much happening. You got the NBA Finals tonight, the Stanley Cup Finals, Phillies back in action, and obviously with the NBA Finals, Adam Silver talking, a lot of NBA news. Got Phil's tonight, Phil's win last night. Where do we start today?
We got a lot on the plate, but let's get to it, MG. Let's start with the coach, and obviously it's been the news throughout the sports world, but the Knicks and Thibs, and we want to get into the head coach and the importance of the head coach, because there's been varying opinions about this firing, and we've had battles and debates, you and I, over the years about the importance of the head coach, especially in the NBA. So let's get into this topic, and I say that this was, I think we both agree on Thibs, the Knicks parting ways with him. But I view that this decision makes sense because it's important for this head coach to get this team over the hump. How do you view basically the importance of the head coach and tie it into the news with the Knicks?
I don't say that the head coach has a role. Like, I'm not like one of these obtuse idiots that think they have 0%. I just don't look at the coach and blame them for that's why you lost or this is why the team isn't what it is. I give the Knicks credit here for making this decision. I don't say that it's Tibbs' fault. I'm not saying it's his fault that they lost. He should have been fired. That's not what I'm saying. I think the culture of the league has changing right before the Knicks' very eyes, and they're seeing it. I'll give them credit. They are smart enough to see that the league is changing, and the Thibodeaus, that's from an era that is now behind them, and they're saying, I don't know that this guy can evolve to where the game is going right now. His style of coaching might not be where this league is. So I give them credit for making a tough decision and saying, you're not the reason we lost. It's not your fault, but the league is going to another direction where I think the coach is very valuable. I was listening to a podcast about this and which they were saying in the NBA right now, the owners of these teams would rather hire a coach that has a grasp on the locker room, the culture, than an X and O guy. Like the X's and O's, they're saying is not why we're hiring you. We're hiring you to set the culture and kind of just, hey, this is the style of our team. Yes, you have to have some idea what you're doing. You can't just have a guy who's like, making sure everybody's rah, rah, rah. But I think the Knicks said they made a tough decision and said, it's not your fault, but the league is changing right now, and I don't know that you can adapt to where the league is going.
See, I agree with you, and I think you make a lot of good points, but I don't think that's why the Knicks fired him, right? So, that's where I'll push back and say, all right, the Knicks, in my mind, and I think this is why they made the decision, is because they don't believe they can get him over the top, right? I mean,
but isn't that one and the same? Isn't that one and the same? Is like,
I don't know.
You are a coach from an era that is no longer the era of the basketball that is being played.
Yes and no, though, because listen, the guys love playing for Thibodeau. This wasn't a cultural thing to the point of the locker room was dysfunctional.
No.
Jalen Brunson's unhappy, Cat's unhappy, Bridges. No, all those guys went to bat for him repeatedly, above and beyond, nothing but good things to say. This is a guy that when he got to New York versus his era in New York, vastly different as far as success and culture. So you look at this decision and you can sort of make the argument and say, man, this was the wrong decision. I don't believe that, but I can piece it together and say, make this make sense because, listen, this firing now, for better or worse, for this Knicks organization is going to dictate their rise or demise. They are not going to be stuck in this purgatory. They are either going to make the jump or they are going to fall back into where they've been for the past, 50 years.
Well, I think, too, you have a guy, defensive-minded coach in Tom Thibodeau, and what let you down? Cat couldn't defend. Jalen Brunson's one of the worst defenders right now in the game. I think Mikal Bridges was a disappointing addition for them. They gave up 5 draft picks, and I don't think they thought they got enough out of him. You're grinding 7 guys. You know, if you're the GM of that team, you're saying, hey, you only played 7 guys. Yeah. And Tim's saying, well, the guys you gave me stunk. There'll probably be a disconnect there with the GM saying, I don't think the players I gave you stunk. I just don't think you were using them. I think there's a lot there that might have been in play here.
Yeah, and it's crazy. Like, Mike Malone's a name that I'm hearing a lot as a potential front runner candidate. This is a guy that just got canned from coaching the best player in the NBA right now, in Jokic. Won a championship where he was just at in Denver, and he gets fired, but now he's going to get hired for the guy that was just fired. Like, it's crazy. Now,
see, if that's the hire that they make, that would go against what I'm saying, is that, hey, it's not your fault the league is changing. Like what Phoenix did today, for instance. They hired a guy that no one's ever heard of. And, maybe Phoenix is saying, look, we need new ideas. We need someone who's more in touch with this new generation of young players, not this guy who's more in touch with Curry and LeBron and KD. And hiring Michael Malone, to me, might be more of a guy who's more in touch with that era of basketball, more so than where the league is going. Although Malone he won a championship 2 years ago. I don't know.
I like Malone a lot, but let's just say they hire him. To me, that would show dysfunction. Because to me, it's easy to go through the recycled guys. It's easy to go through the guys that the resume is there. They have an NBA championship. Like, that hire is an easy hire. But what the Phoenix Suns just did, now that's a team that didn't even make the playoffs, so it's a different situation. But that hire is outside the box. That's a gutsy hire. We're going to bring a guy in and make him a head coach that's never been a head coach before. That's like a Sean McVay hire, right, to go to an NFL example. That's a hiring that's different and outside the box. Do you think that's what the Knicks should do?
Do I think that's what the Knicks should do? Yeah, if that's why they if they fired the coach that they have who's had success.
Yeah.
If you're telling me we don't believe you can get us over the hump because the league is changing, then yeah, you got to go find someone that you think connects more to the league the way it is right now. Like I asked a lot, like, right now Oklahoma City's the best team in the league. I can't imagine there's many people in the listening audience who know who their coach is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But like, how about a guy like Rick Carlisle, who's been around the league forever? Talk about the coaching job that he's done with Indiana. That's like an old school guy.
But guess what? He's been on. This is like his 3rd or 4th team that he's been the coach of. He was in Dallas. Before that, he was.
He's been all over. He was in Indiana back.
He was in Indiana then, right? So this is his 2nd time back there. But he is showing that he can evolve and change. It's what Miles Turner said. Hey, we're young. We get out and run and go. I don't know that that's the way he coached his teams in his previous stops.
Yeah, no, it's not. And actually, going back to Mike Malone, and we can evolve from this or move on to other things we have here. But Mike Malone is actually similar to Thibodeau. The year they won the title in Denver, Malone only played 7 or 8 guys. Like, Malone is similar in the sense of he's not going deep into the well of the bench where he's a guy that's historically played 10, 11 guys. And maybe he hasn't had that type of depth as well. But it's just interesting to bring that up, too.
Absolutely. Like, when you look at Michael Malone, he gets fired, and the guy that they replace him with is, like 34 years old?
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's a
Rick Adelman's son, I think it is, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I think I forget his name. Maybe David, whatever. He has a forgettable
David
name
Adelman.
Face. Yeah.
Yeah, David Adelman. It's Rick Adelman's son who takes over that. And I think they looked at it and said, hey, we just need like a different voice right now. We need to go in a different direction. We need new ideas. What we're doing is getting, it's weird. The shelf life, you got a guy that wins a championship, so he's a proven commodity, and you're basically saying, nah, not good.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know if these moves sometimes are more of a scapegoat move, as we all know, more of a, hey, we just need to change it up because we feel the pressure. We feel like we're not achieving. But sometimes these moves are just made just to make them, right? And that's where this Knicks thing and the importance of the head coach is just such an interesting conversation, because you have to be able to decipher between the right time and the wrong time.
I always feel that fans put way too much importance on the coach, the manager, always blaming the coach, always blaming the manager. Do they have a role in the wins and losses? Sure. But I always will put especially in the NBA. It's a players' league in the NBA. They run the roost, and ultimately, when you win and lose games, now having a coach that can have an impact gives your team a big advantage when you have that guy. But like somebody said, I was listening to a podcast the other day. They said Eric Spoelstra is generally thought to be the best coach in the league. They said he had a terrible year with that team this year. So you have this guy who's thought to be this great coach, and that team was a disaster this year.
Yeah, well, it goes hand in hand. You can only do so much with the tools that you're given. But let me ask you this, because you brought up culture and how that's sort of a priority with head coaches in your mind. And I agree with that. Do you think the coach has more of an impact on that? Or to me, I think it's more of the ownership in the front office. Like,
well, I think it's hand in hand because the coach and the ownership is hiring this coach, and they're the one that's deciding whether or not this is the right guy to set the culture or not.
Right, but it's like, can they even set the culture to that type of a degree? Like, to me, it's the front office and the ownership, i.e. the Philadelphia Eagles. Not taking anything away from Sirianni, but they're setting the bar of the culture. They're dictating the culture with the money they spend and the things that they prioritize as a franchise, not the head coach. You can bring in a million different clowns to be the head coach. It's you know?
But I think part of the interview process is them laying out the culture that they want and then deciding whether that guy's the right guy to relay that culture message.
Yeah, they all have to be on the same page. And that's where it's like with the Knicks, well, who made this decision? Is it the owner or is it the front office? Is it both? Like, those are the things that matter in all of this as well.
Yeah, and I'm interested to see who they end up hiring here because I think that might give us a little bit of a look. If they go outside the box and hire some young guy that no one's ever heard of before, my theory might be right. If they go and bring Michael Malone in or Mike Budenholzer or Frank Vogel, then I'm probably off base.
Yeah, exactly. We'll keep this in our back pocket and see what the next steps look like for the Knicks. But interesting conversation. All right, I want to move on. And I want to get to, I don't know how much of this you've already talked about throughout the past day or two or not, but did you hear what Saquon Barkley said on Josh Hennig's favorite podcast, Chris Long's Green Light podcast?
I did. We talked about it during the Nuggets a little bit last hour, yes.
All right, so we don't have to dive too much back into it, but maybe listeners out there tuning in for this hour for the first time, we can revisit it. Saquon said he wants to be like Barry Sanders and, looking at retiring early. To me...
We have the bite, by the way, so let's take a listen. This is for the people who haven't heard it yet. This is what Saquon Barkley said on the Green Light podcast.
Do you imagine yourself as one of these guys that wants to do it until the wheels fall off?
It's a great question. I'll probably be one of those guys that it'll be out of nowhere. Like, I'll probably just wake up one day, whether it's next year or 2 years or 4 years, and just be like, yeah, it's over. I don't think I will ever lose that passion. The competitive nature is always going to be there, but I like probably my favorite player all time is Barry Sanders. So probably similar to that. Maybe one day, it'll be out of nowhere. I'll probably be balling and just be like, yeah, call it quits.
I mean, you got to love everything about Saquon, especially how he explains that. But to me, this is how I look at this. Green light, pun intended, for the Philadelphia Eagles to continue to run him into the ground. He's not playing. He doesn't want to play for another 8 years. Use me as much as you want to use me. He already has the championship now, right? I think you just run it back exactly how you used him last year, and you have no regrets. Well,
he did sign this extension, that the Eagles gave him, so I'm interested to see. I agree. Listen, when you sign him to this extension, there's this. That's it. We extended you. We have you from now to the end of that thing because at the end of that thing, he's going to be, I would imagine, I think 31 or 32, somewhere in that range, and we're probably not going to give you another big deal. So I think the plan is to, run him into the ground per se anyway. Wouldn't you?
Yeah, I would hope. I would hope so. And that's it comes off negatively, that saying, run him into the ground. What I really mean by that is, we're not load managing him. We're not worried about the amount of carries he gets. He's an elite athlete at his position in the entire world. And this is a guy that doesn't want to do it forever anyway. So you should have that green light and flexibility to just say, all right, let's still make him the centerpiece of all this.
Yeah, listen, I think it's good that now the organization is like, hey, you're just going to walk off of the sunset on us here or something. And I think there's an understanding of, no, I'm not going to do that to you. You know, we got this contract. You know, so.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder how much winning the Super Bowl last year impacts that thought and that statement. And let's say the Eagles somehow go back to back and repeat. Does that impact his decision to retire early?
Good question.
Does he say, you know what, I'm done now. I just went back to back.
That's a good question on whether or not, hey, you do it twice and you're like, what more do I need to prove? I'm 29 years old.
At the top.
I'm done. I'm out of here. Deuces.
Right.
I wouldn't be, after hearing him say that, I wouldn't be shocked about it.
No, me either. And I think that's going to be interesting to see how the short-term success of the team impacts that. But I think he would do that. Just trying to look into my crystal ball over here. If he wants to be like his idol Barry Sanders, if he wins another one, why wouldn't he walk off into the sunset, on the highest part of the mountain, so to speak?
I tell you what, it would be apropos for him to do it like Barry, because he seems to be that kind of guy. He's kind of, soft-spoken, just a great dude, seems like. And, hey, why not? 2,000 yards, Super Bowl, whatever he follows it up with this year, and whatever he does, and then walk off into the sunset.
Yeah. Should be interesting. All right, we can move on from that. I just wanted to make sure that we brought that up a little bit here in this hour. But keeping it rolling, I want to go to the Phillies. We're going to try and touch them all here real quick to start this thing off. And there's been more and more talk about Schwarber back to the leadoff. And that debate and conversation has resurfaced, MG. I've been a guy that's always been a fan of it. Listen, he's thrived out of the leadoff, right? Like, it's not like Schwarber's struggling. It's not like the team is necessarily struggling. I know as of late, maybe a little bit. But how do you look at this now, seeing what we've seen with him out of the leadoff? To me, I'm still a proponent and a fan of him going back to it.
I was never a fan. I was never against him hitting leadoff, but I also understand that they have a big hole in the middle of the lineup if he's not there. I mean, if you put him back in the leadoff spot, who are you hitting on this team right now behind Bryce Harper? I mean, it is. We just saw what happened when Harper's been out of the lineup. You got Alec Boehm hitting again in the 3-hole with Castellanos hitting 4. I mean, you just can't do that. You have some other options to hit leadoff. I know it's not like leadoff's not important, but the whole point of it was like you got to get some protection for Harper. If you take him out of the leadoff hole, you have nothing behind Harper. You don't have a guy on this team, not one, that has double-digit home runs other than Schwarber.
Sure, but isn't the question, regardless if you move Schwarber back or not, like the success is still dictated on Alec Boehm and Casty? Like those guys needing to step up and play at a really high level and perform and produce offensively, that's still sort of the X factor of this team. As far
they
as
got to
look.
There's two things here. This is a good conversation that really can peel the onion. We talked about it with Mike McGarry in the first hour. You have Justin Crawford, and they're talking, hey, when are they going to bring this guy up? The center field thing is a disaster. Okay, I bring up Justin Crawford. Where does he hit in the lineup? Because right now at AAA, the guy's hitting like 340 with a 407 on-base percentage. Do you put him at the top of the order and hit him leadoff? So then you have Crawford, Turner, Harper, Schwarber? Or do you keep Stott hitting leadoff here with an on-base percentage of under 300? I mean, I don't know how much longer you can go with a leadoff man with an on-base percentage of under 300. It's
a good question. What would you do? Let's say we bring him up tomorrow. Hypothetical.
I think you got to start him in the 9-hole and just see if he can handle it, and then maybe you make a decision like that to move him. I don't think you can just say, "Hey, welcome aboard. You're hitting leadoff tonight."
Yeah, no, that would be insane. I agree with you there, and I don't know. Do you think that the Crawford decision should impact whether you move Schwarber back or not? Right? Like,
no, because if you move Schwarber to the 1-hole. Having Crawford here doesn't help answer that question. He's not going to hit 4. He has 1 home run at AAA, so he has no power to speak of at this moment in time. So to me, and the fact that he bats left-handed really limits where you could put him. To me, he can either hit 1 or 9, maybe 8, or but bottom 3 or 1 would be the spots for him. So I mean, I almost feel like you have to keep Schwarber there because you have no other answer. Now, the only thing would be, and I'm sure as we're having this conversation, Steven Ventnor will send me 7 horrible trade possibilities. But you got to get a right-handed bat, and it's not going to be Mike Trout. They're not trading for Mike Trout. So I don't know where you get this bat. I've never claimed that this bat exists. I'm just saying it's not my job to go find them a right-handed bat, but I'm sure they're looking, and it's not going to be Mike Trout. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I just think you look at what Stott has done, and I understand everything you've outlined, the importance of legit protection behind Harper, but Stott has not shown consistently that he is the guy to bat leadoff for a World Series type of a team. He just isn't. And we've also seen Bryce Harper go on tears and play like and bat and produce like an MVP, regardless of who's protecting him behind him, right? So you don't say, screw it, we don't need protection because of that. But I think you say, all right, we need to go back to having that strength at the top of the order.
Yeah, I mean, unless, again, they were able to, like, let's say, hypothetically, they traded for Rhys Hoskins. I mean, okay, I don't think that's going to happen, by the way, but I'm just saying, he's right-handed. He could hit behind Harper, add some protection. Then maybe you can move Schwarber to the top of the lineup, but I don't even think I would do that. If they brought in a player like Hoskins, who is a right-handed bat with a very high on-base percentage, I would probably then just go Turner, Hoskins, Harper, Schwarber.
Turner, Hoskins. Yeah, absolutely. If we get a right-handed bat like that, yeah, it makes sense. I'm on board, right? And you bring up a good point just overall is, all right, let's see what this team does, if anything, come trade deadline and how that impacts what the lineup may look like, hopefully, for playoff baseball.
Say that one more time. You skipped on me.
I said you bring up just a good point overall of this discussion will be impacted by what type of move they make come trade deadline, if any.
Yeah, I mean, I think, look, that's why I think you got to look at Crawford and say, hey, can this guy play? Can we bring him up and have him bat 8th or 9th? And just, hey, now we have a guy at the bottom of the order who's got a pretty good on-base percentage. I mean, your 2 on-base guys at the bottom of the lineup right now are 300 and 310 or something dreadful to that. So you're getting nothing on at the bottom of the order from the 9-hole spot. The 2 center fielders have been terrible. Kepler, he's been terrible. So you really need an upgrade almost in left field. And even if you like Kepler against right-handers and you want to keep him there, I mean, you got to find an upgrade to Weston Wilson. I mean, he's providing Zippo, and he's not a good defensive player either. So now you almost need a left fielder or a left field platoon player. You need a center fielder, and you need 2 bullpen arms minimally.
Well, let's say this. I mean, how much of an impact can Crawford really have? I know we don't know the answer to that question, but would the Phillies actually start him in the playoffs? Like, Crawford's our center fielder in the World Series in the NLCS?
I mean, if you brought him up and he was successful, he's got to – listen, you better hope that he is better than Johan Rojas and Brandon Marsh. And I can't – look, that's not asking a lot. Those 2 guys have been dreadful. Right now, at AAA in 50 games. Now, again, I don't put a lot of stock into these numbers. We had Ruben Amaro. We played that bite yesterday on the show. We'll play it again if you want. I mean, Ruben Amaro was saying, look, right now the pitching in AAA is really bad. It's not like – so this is what Ruben Amaro said about the pitching.
The AAA pitching is not very good. And then I know Otto Kemp is going nuts, and it's another guy to sort of consider to try to jumpstart a little bit. Maybe he can play some left field and add to some of the offense, perhaps. But the pitching in AAA is really not very good. I've heard that from many, many, many people, that the pitching in AA is way better even.
So you got bad pitching at AAA. You got a guy in Justin Crawford. He's hitting .337 with a .407 on-base percentage. I mean, those numbers you're saying, okay, I mean, you got to help us out with those numbers. And even, like, you're not going to hit .337 with a .4040 on base at the major league level, but what do they translate to at this level?
Exactly. It's like, listen, yeah, I think we all understand the pitching in AAA is not as good or not that good, but that doesn't mean that you can't just completely throw out any success that he's having. You still have to figure out how much weight you need to put into that and what it could mean.
Yeah, no question. And listen, you have to try to figure out ultimately, is he a guy that can help you immediately where you see, and I think we brought up the point, I forget who we were talking to the other day about this, which is, it was Frank. I think the Phillies are they got to try to find a way to get rid of Marsh first. See if there's any takers for Marsh because you bring up Crawford. Now you have Marsh, a left-handed hitter, and Crawford, a left-handed hitter, duplicitous in the lineup. What are you going to do with Marsh? You can't just have him sitting there do nothing. So they're trying to get rid of him to open up the spot, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it could add depth, but then you say, all right, we're keeping Rojas or we're keeping Marsh. I think, to your point, you have to look to trade Rojas or Marsh, see whichever one can give you back what you need in a potential trade before you give Crawford the keys.
Yeah, I mean, to me, Marsh has minimal, if any, value. You probably could say, hey, do you need a left-handed platoon center fielder?
What's Marsh's contract?
He don't make a lot. He doesn't make a lot of money.
I just mean like years wise, like how many,
I think he's in the arbitration years still before.
Okay.
Before he makes any. Yeah, he is signed through this year. He's arbitration eligible. He's a free agent in 2028. So whatever team gets him, they're getting him for 3 more years after this.
Right. I was.
All right, we'll take we'll take a quick timeout. We'll come back. We got so much more to go here on the next segment. Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. Phil's tonight. There you go. There's the pitching matchup. It's Abel and Berrios. Abel, of course, making his second start for the Phillies. Berrios 2-2 with a 3.86 ERA for the Blue Jays. More Sports Bash on the way. 97.3 ESPN. 5:33, keeping it going on a Sports Bash Wednesday. NBA Finals tomorrow night on 97.3 ESPN OKC and the Pacers. Adam Silver talking today. Had some interesting things to say about the state of his game and more. There you go. Sorry, pop you back in for the YouTube and Twitter X audience. If you're watching there, like, subscribe on the YouTube channel at Mike Gill Show. Ryan Rothstein's back for another segment. Here we go. Ryer Sy, what do we got?
Yeah, let's start with Adam Silver since you teased that bad boy. And he was on some show on FS1 and he had a lot to say, some interesting things. And I'll start with one topic, which was about the NBA All-Star Game, which always is a popular topic in debate. And he said, "Listen, I looked at the NHL and what they did, USA versus the world, and how successful that was." He basically did everything but unofficially confirm that the NBA is going to look to adopt that model for their All-Star game and go USA versus the world. So just your thoughts on that portion of what he had to say.
I definitely think that it would make an interesting game. The problem I think that the USA might have is they're going to get embarrassed by the world. The world has run circles and laps around USA basketball right now. When you put the best players in the world together, who are you taking, the world or the USA?
I don't think the USA would get embarrassed. I'm definitely signing at that. Now, do I think it would be competitive? Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know about okay, and maybe embarrassed. I don't think they're losing 25 points, but I mean, this is our game, and the youth system that we've put together has completely taken a crap on it. I mean, it's a joke of what has happened to basketball. I mean, are you kidding me? The fact that the Dream Team built you go back to the Dream Team and see about how far the gap there was. And now the gap has not only been closed, it's been surpassed because of how our youth systems are run.
Yeah, well, when you go USA versus the world, yeah, I agree with you. But listen, Team USA, like in the Olympics, still the best, still the standard. The gap has absolutely gotten very small. I agree with you, but USA
they're the best as like our country against other countries.
Right.
Because those countries are so small, but you put the other countries together as a world team, then you put just Europe. You don't even need just put the Europe against USA, and Europe would win.
Yeah, they could win. I listen. You still have LeBron, you still have Curry, you still have Durant, you still have Tatum. You got studs on the USA team. Where would Embiid go? Probably the US, but the USA is still loaded. But Silver also touched on the issues right now in the country with youth basketball. He said AAU is a problem. Adam Silver touched on that.
Yeah,
he said,
it's an absolute problem. Every AAU coach should be embarrassed. They should be embarrassed at the product that they put together.
They're not coaches.
No, they're not coaches at all. Listen, it's an embarrassment. The basketball has completely got surpassed by the European game.
Now, I'll add this because the NIL topic's always interesting, and this factors into it. Because the NIL now, you're having 18-year-olds in the U.S. that can make $28 million, like Cooper Flagg did, right? Like, that impacts things negatively as well in the U.S. as far as development.
Yeah. I mean, it's a whole thing of, like, what was the ultimate goal here, right? We have gone out of our way to try to rush these kids through the process where you're telling 10-year-olds, hey, you're getting looked at. Like, I mean, Are you serious now? Like, we've got 10-year-old kids playing AAU sports. We've got, it's ridiculous because we're just trying to rush these kids through life to try to make them money. When you put money in the whole situation, you've now ruined the journey and the hard work and what it takes to get there. That doesn't mean they're not working hard. They don't have to work hard. But you've now made it a singular thing. Try to make money, which is what people wanted to do anyway. But you went on this journey to try to get there. And at some point, the journey told you weren't good enough. But when you throw money into the mix that says, hey, you're good enough now, but you might not be good enough to get to the ultimate goal, you've now ruined the journey.
Yeah, no, I agree. And it's like, when did we strip away the importance of high school basketball? Why does it no longer matter about the high school you go to and the team that you play for? You don't even have to play high school basketball. You can be flunking out of high school, not be eligible for your high school basketball varsity team, go play AAU and drop 40 a game, and you can figure out a way to get into a Division I school. That should never be able to happen.
Yeah, I mean, listen, and one of the things that people will say, well, the AAU's better level of play than a high school game or whatever it is. Yeah, but you're not getting taught anything. Why have we taken a step back is because, the high school game, you were being coached. You were having fundamentals. And then, of course, it turns into, well, the coach was a teacher and whatever, all that stuff. I mean, listen, The system's a mess. Adam Silver has seen that the system's a mess. It's not even Adam Silver. This goes back to Kobe, LeBron. Yeah. They all acknowledge that the system is a mess.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's just a lack of a focus on team basketball, where the world, Europe, they prioritize team basketball. They practice 8 times a week and they have a game once a week. AAU, you have 8 games a week and you practice maybe once a week. That flip-flop is the difference and why that margin has been so narrow. But to go back to the All-Star format, I think it would at least be a success and it would draw interest back to the NBA All-Star game again, and that's what it's been lacking.
Yeah, probably for a little bit until that gets worn out and then you want to switch. I mean, because the NHL has changed their format over and over and over again. But, it's funny because this whole thing, the 4 nations, best on best that they had, you're talking about, hey, the ratings were unbelievable for that. Is the interest back in hockey? Well, now they're talking about the Stanley Cup starts tonight and that there's going to be no interest.
Yeah, no. Most people probably don't even realize that Game 1 is tonight of the Stanley Cup. So, yeah, it's a short-term solution, but I still think it's the right one for the short term because it can garner that interest that it so desperately needs. So that was an interesting conversation with Adam Silver. All right, I want to move on back to us here in our backyard in Philadelphia sports world, and I have this. Who is the most important athlete right now in the Philadelphia sports scene? Because I have some good ones. I want you to throw a name or two out, but who is the most important to success right now in Philly sports?
Well, there's a lot of answers, obviously. It's a great conversation. I mean, you could say Joel Embiid's health.
Mm-hmm.
One.
That's a strong candidate for number 1. Yep. I have...
Bryce Harper is high on that list.
Absolutely. I have Maxey as sort of a wild card. Because like you and I, what if Maxey becomes Halliburton? Like his development could be the X factor.
It could be, but you still, even so, I think as constructed, if Embiid's here and Embiid's not healthy, Maxey is going to need somebody else on this particular team.
Yes. But I think Embiid also needs Maxey.
Sure. But so, Embiid needs healthy also, but Embiid's health is paramount.
Yeah. Jalen Hurts, I think, is huge. It's an obvious one. He's the starting quarterback for the Eagles, but nonetheless, what if he takes another jump, MG?
I was almost not even thinking of him because I'm almost like you just won. He's proven that he can win. He's been to a Super Bowl. He's won a Super Bowl. But I would almost look on the defensive side of the ball and say the most important guy you could look at is Jalen Carter in terms of that defense lost a lot. He now needs to take another step because of all the losses around him as this dominant figure on the defensive side of the ball.
I'll say another one on that side of the ball. What about Cooper DeJean? A guy in the secondary, a guy that was awesome last year as a rookie. What if he takes another step in his development and maybe it's at safety?
Well, it sounds like Vic Fangio is hoping that happens, including playing some safety, because he said yesterday, "Hey, we want him on the field, whether it be on base or nickel or whatever. That means if he has to play some safety or whatever." So yeah, Cooper, I think, is getting a lot more put on his plate. Another guy that I think you would say is important if you want to go outside the box would be Michkov. Because This Flyers organization has been a complete nothing burger for the last 5 years. They've been bad. They really don't have much to show for it being bad other than him, right? I mean, they haven't made the playoffs in 5 years, and there's only one player on the roster that you're really excited about. And if that guy doesn't produce, you're back to square one with nothing.
How about we replace most important athlete for most important person? Because that's where you can throw in Sirianni, Daryl Morey, Flyers front off, like Keith Jones, right? Like that's where the conversation could get interesting if you have a thought on that too.
Dombrowski, I would Morey right now. Morey, because Dombrowski has a team that's going to make the playoffs. It's like, okay, great, but he needs to win a World Series. He's definitely on the list, but Morey is in a really, really, this is a huge spot for him because he's got these two stars that are at the end of the line in terms of injuries and age. He also has the future in his hands because he has Maxey, he has McCain, and he has the third pick in the draft. So he's kind of serving two masters at the same time. It's an odd spot to be in. So he's got a really tough task.
I would argue, and listen, I could agree with Morey, and I can talk about Morey, you know that, for hours. But I'll say Dombrowski because the Phillies are closest to possibly bringing a parade back down Broad, and what he does or does not do this year leading up to the trade deadline could be the difference in that, right?
Listen, if they don't make a move, and I can't imagine, I mean, they're going to do something. I mean, there's no way that they do nothing at the deadline. But we thought that for the last couple of years, and they've done something. They just haven't done enough. I mean, you bring in Rodolfo Castro one year as your right-handed bat that you made a trade for. Not good enough. Last year, Austin Hayes. If they had a similar trade deadline this year as to last year, Carlos Estevez, who became your closer, and Austin Hayes, who you were going to have him play every day in right field until he got hurt, what a similar trade deadline to last year. And Tanner Banks they brought in. He was a left-handed pitcher that they traded for with the White Sox. He's still here. Would that be a successful deadline? Probably not.
No, absolutely not. I think there has to be a big bang. There has to be a big splash, as big as you can make. You know, whoever's out there, that has to be the goal. It has to be a significant move. Not just a marginal one or multiple marginal ones. I think it has to be a big-time move for this team to get over that hump.
I would agree. I mean, I think, now the thing is, if you brought in a pitcher like Carlos Estevez, I mean, you're getting a closer. I mean, he's going to make your bullpen better. The question is, just making your bullpen better, is that good enough? Because it wasn't good enough last year.
Yeah, no, it's a good question. I mean, we brought up Harper, but it could be Harper. Like maybe the answer to this question for the Phillies specifically lies in someone who's already here.
I'll give you another name. I mean, you could put Trey Turner in there. I mean, we were talking before the show. I think they were talking about Trey Turner's having one of the best shortstop seasons. 305, 360 on base percentage, 16 stolen bases. He's showing a little power recently, 2 home runs last night. He's up to 7 there. Can he be this Trey Turner that all of a sudden is wrecking havoc on the bases? That's one thing. They signed him, and I've heard a lot of people talk about moving him from shortstop to the outfield, and then there was the other side of that has been, hey, if you're moving him to the outfield and he's out there running around and diving for balls and all that stuff, are you then limiting him as a base stealer? Is it more wear and tear on his body playing the outfield? I don't know. Can Trey Turner go play left field and catch the ball?
I don't know. That's a little bit too radical for me. But, quickly, you bring up Turner. We had conversations when he was struggling. You were very outspoken about Trey Turner and how much you hate that contract and how much he's been the issue and underperforming. How much of your tune has shifted? How much weight do you put into what we've seen recently?
Oh, listen, I still don't like the contract. I still think, but he is having a pretty solid year right now. His numbers are fine, but they didn't sign him to be, an on base. Maybe they did. I don't know. But I think they thought they were getting a 5-tool player, a guy who can hit for average, steal bases, hit for some power, be a dependable shortstop, which he's not. The power hasn't been there. He hasn't had a bad year by any stretch of the imagination. That would be idiotic to say, but I still don't think he's a $300 million player. So that's where we'll end it today.
All right, man.
All right, good stuff. All right, we'll do it again tomorrow right here on the Sports Bash Live, 97.3 ESPN. See ya.
Later.
All right, more Sports Bash coming up. I got the Bet365 play of the day to wrap it all up coming up next. All right, 5:53, getting ready to get out of here on this Wednesday night. Couple plays on the Bet365 play of the day. We didn't do so hot last night. Can you believe the Rockies have won 2 games in a row?
I don't know what's more surprising, the fact that the Rockies won 2 games in a row, or that you actually had 2 games with the exact same run lines and they both lost.
Well, I'll do better tonight.
I believe in you. You're 175, 118, and 1. I think you got this.
I got Miami tonight and San Francisco, the Giants, playing the Padres. I like the Dodgers too, but it's not my strongest information.
So San Francisco over the Padres, right?
Yep. Miami's got to beat Colorado. You can't get swept by the Rockies, can you?
You could.
You could.
Now, are you taking run lines again, or are you going something else here?
Yeah.
Run lines, okay. Got it.
There you go.
Thank you for clarifying.
That's the Bet365 play of the day. Whatever the sport, whatever the moment, it's never ordinary at Bet365. All right, that'll about do it for me. Tomorrow, we'll look back to Phil's night against the Blue Jays. Mick Abel goes tonight. So we'll be all over that.
What do you think he's going to do tonight? How do you think he's going to do?
I think he's going to have a rough night.
Blue Jays hitters going to get to him?
I mean, I want to see him command. That's what he had. No walks the last time he was up. That's been his big problem. Can he command tonight? That'll be the big thing that I'm watching for there. All right, that'll do it. We got game night coming up next. And then tomorrow night, the NBA Finals begin. Another Finals with no Sixers. It's been 25 years since the Sixers have been in the NBA Finals. We'll be all over that and more. Sports Bash Live on 97.3 ESPN. And don't forget to check us out on the 97.3 ESPN free mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City. Have a great night, everybody.